Yeah. There's some capacity, but not a whole lot. Cameras. The prices of cameras have come down so much. The prices have come down so much that just half of this intersection. Cameras are the wish out versus detection cameras versus in-ground loops. No. And then 2 weeks ago, on like Thursday. That way when we resurface the streets, and then you're out the next day. They've come a long way. They've got the bugs out, and they're cheap. It's in there. White edge. Sure did.
Dave, can you make sure that we don't have anybody trying to get up on the elevator?
This is where we don't determine where it's held. We just go.
Chief.
Okay.
Good to see you.
The time is 7 p.m. I call the City of Delaware Planning Commission meeting for September 2nd, 2015 to order. Before I have the clerk take the roll, I want to remind our commission members that we are on YouTube this evening. We are live streaming this video to help with our citizen engagement. So I would ask all commission members to please speak into your microphones so that you can be easily heard. And with that, I would ask the clerk to please take the roll.
Mr. Manzoros.
Here.
Mr. Prawl.
Here.
Ms. Tuckerbuck. Here. Mr. Halter.
Here.
Mr. Lemke.
Here.
Vice Chairman Simpson.
Here.
Chairwoman Keller.
Here. Moving on to item 2, the approval of the motion summary. Would the clerk please read this into the record?
Approval of the motion summary of the Planning Commission meeting held on August 5th, 2015, as recorded and transcribed.
What is the wish of the commission on this item?
Make a motion, we approve the summary, motion summary of the Planning Commission held on August 5th, 2015, as recorded and transcribed.
Motion by Mr. Halter,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Simpson. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Manzoros.
Yes.
Mr. Prawl.
Yes.
Ms. Tuckerbuck.
Yes.
Mr. Halter.
Yes.
Mr. Lemke.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simpson.
Yes.
Chairwoman Keller.
Yes. Moving on to item 3 of regular business. Would the clerk please read items A, 1, 2, and 3 into the record?
Item A, Delaware County Courthouse. Number 1, 2015-1550, a request by the Delaware County Board of Commissioners for approval of a rezoning amendment from R3, One Family Residential District, to B2, Central Business District, with text limitations for a new county courthouse located at 110 North Sandusky Street, just south of the Hayes Building on approximately 1.99 acres. Item 2, 2015-1551, a request by the Delaware County Board of Commissioners for approval of a combined preliminary and final development plan for a new county courthouse located at 110 North Sandusky Street, just south of the Hayes Building, on approximately 1.99 acres in Zone B2, Central Business District, with text limitations. Item 3, 2015-1552, a request by the Delaware County Board of Commissioners for approval of a street vacation for Marshall Court right-of-way and right-of-way along the southeastern portion of the site for a new county courthouse located at 110 North Sandusky Street, just south of the Hayes Building, on approximately 1.99 acres in Zone B2, Central Business District, with text limitations.
Okay, Lance?
Yes. The subject site located just south of the Hayes Building west of North Sandusky Street, east of North Union Street. It's zoned, there's 4 parcels that are outlined in the orange. 2 of the parcels are zoned B2 with text limitations, while the other 2 are zoned R3. We need to rezone the R3 parcels to B2 with text limitations to allow, that would allow the courthouse, and it would be consistent with the Hayes building rezoning that occurred in 2000. The site is also located in the downtown historic overlay district, and it's in the transitional sub-district. This is an aerial of the site. You can tell the eastern portion of the site is the existing parking lot. You have the Elks building on the southwest portion and the Leffler, the old Leffler garage on the northern portion of the site. Give you some history of this. Several approvals would be needed from various commissions over the years to actually start construction of the courthouse. In November 2012, the Historic Preservation Committee approved the demolition of the Leffler House, which has since been demolished, except for the garage that's there today. And in January 2014, City Council approved the demolition of the Elks building, which still remains. In July of this year, the HPC approved a certificate of appropriateness for building design and materials for the new county courthouse, which will be elevations later in the presentation. Now they're requesting the rezoning of the parcel, a combined preliminary and final development plan, and street vacation to complete the zoning approvals before they can initiate construction. The courthouse itself would be over 92,000 square feet. It would be 5 levels. Bottom 2 would be garages, and it would encompass almost 2 acres. This is a demolition of the site. The majority of the site is going to be demoed. The existing parking lot on the eastern portion of the site would be demoed and reconstructed. The parking deck, the county parking deck along the southern portion of the site would be demoed. The Elks building would be taken out, and the what's left of the Leffler garage and other appurtenances. Also, the sidewalk and a portion of North Sandusky Street would be demoed in the proposal. As I indicated, the zoning of the site is B2 with text limitations that essentially just allows a government building here with the parking. And this would be consistent with the Hayes building that was rezoned in 2000. Currently, the engineers are, the engineering department's preparing the construction drawings for the site. And also, the applicant is preparing a traffic impact study for a site. The screen now has a proposed site plan. The portion in green is the actual building footprint itself. In blue is the parking garage, which is just south of the building and attached to the building. And the yellow portion are the site improvements. Along the eastern portion is the parking lot, the existing parking lot that would be reconstructed. The entrance into, the main entrance would be off Union Street, off the parking lot into a plaza, into the new building. Along the south portion is the an alley or an entrance from the south, the alley to the south to the parking garage. Along the western portion would be the reconstructed sidewalk and curb that would protrude about 1 lane into North Sandusky Street. And on the northern portion would be the Marshall Court Plaza. There would be three entrances into the site, into the parking garages. The first level would be accessed from South Union Street or North Union Street through the current curb cut. You'd enter the first level. The second level of the garage would be accessed from the alley from the south. And the parking deck, which is above the second level parking garage, would be accessed from North Sandusky Street. Existing Marshall Court, which is a one-way court from road from North Sandusky to Union, would remain open as it is currently today. The applicant is proposing that alley just south of the development be a one-way east alley. The Parking and Safety Committee is currently reviewing that proposal, and they're requesting input from the public and the commission. Since this report was written, the applicant and the county and the owner of the parcel southwest of the site, Mr. Miller's parcel, his parking lot is on the north side of the alley, And to access that, currently it's two-way. And they verbally agreed that it would remain two-way as long as this city parking and safety committee ultimately approves that. So they had that discussion earlier this week. Parking on the site, as I said, there's 2 parking garages and a parking deck. That would accommodate 170 new parking spaces on the site. That would open up the existing Union Street parking lots for the public and patrons to the site. The first and second floor level garages would be for county, judicial, and law enforcement staff, as well as prisoner transport area. Parking deck access for Sandusky Street would be for jurors and the like. Each of the parking areas would be gated for security, and there would be no vehicular interconnections between the 3 levels. They'd be independent of each other. The site layout indicates, as I indicated, there's a new reconstructed parking lot along the east that leads into a new plaza just east of the park or west of the parking lot that accesses the main entrance from Union Street. Along the north portion of the site is the Marshall Plaza. That's for employees. And that's adjacent to the Hayes Building. That would not be for public access for security purposes. Along the western portion is the new sidewalk and the new curb for the extended area for, they're requesting a 40-foot buffer area to comply with the federal regulations for security for judicial buildings. That's the request, why they want to protrude into the North Sandusky right away. Building design. This is the north elevation, looking from the Hayes Building. You can see from right to left, it slopes from Sandusky Street to Union Street. This is the south elevation, looking from the south alley. On the right portion, you can see the entrance into the second level garage. This is the elevation from Union Street. This is the main entrance into the building. Along the left portion of the exhibit, you can see the entrance into the first level garage. And this is the view from South Sandusky Street. And on the right portion of that, you can see the entrance from Sandusky Street to the parking deck. Again, the Historic Preservation Committee approved these elevations in July. Landscaping, the applicant is identifying street trees, parking lot landscaping, and foundation landscaping that achieves compliance with the zoning code. Tree preservation, there are several trees that would be eliminated in this development. Staff requests a tree survey to document the type and style of the trees and comply with our tree preservation requirements, which is Chapter 1168 of the zoning code. And also they need to submit a lighting plan identifying any light poles in the parking lot and any building lights to achieve compliance with our zoning code. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning with 2 conditions, the combined preliminary and final development plan with 9 conditions, and the street vacation with 2 conditions. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any commission member questions?
I just have one for Lance.
Will you pull your microphone a little closer?
Sorry,
Thank you.
I'm not normally told I'm not loud. For the parking levels, the 3 levels that have different security based on your clearance and whether or not you can access them, what is the signage at the bottom of the ramps for the parking to notify individuals that they cannot access? How will, besides the fact that there's a gate that they can't get through, is there something that would notify them?
I would defer to the applicant because I'm not sure how they're proposing to
Okay.
sign that signage on it.
Should we just bring the applicant up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
My name is Tom Potts. I'm an architect at Silling Associates from Charleston, West Virginia.
Thank you. We
you're
need your
welcome.
address, please, for the record.
If, 405 Capitol Street, Charleston, West Virginia, 25301.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're hoping that the gates indicate that there is no access to the gate that is on Sandusky Street all the gates would be maintained closed. And we're hoping that that sends a visual cue. You bring up a really good point that there should be signage that clearly indicates that this is staff-only parking. And there will be signage to that effect at all 3 locations. And I think it's probably especially important from the alley that we indicate appropriately that this is entry for staff only. So you raise a good point, and it's something that we'll address.
And I would suggest that the sign happens before they get to the ramp,
Sure,
and then they're stuck.
sure. Yeah, yes, good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add to staff's presentation?
No, I appreciate Lance's thoroughness. I think he did a very good job of spelling it out. It is staff-only parking, and that parking for that upper level, for a little bit of clarity, would also be staff and jury. So it's not jury only, and that's a minor point.
Okay, thank you. Are there any commission member questions for the applicant or for staff? You can come back up if there's something.
For that 40-foot clearance zone along Sandusky, what is that going to look like? Are we going to put pillars? Are we just going to, how is that going to be a visual when we clear out that space along Sandusky?
It's minimally noted in that plan, but you can start to see a suggestion of planting beds. There are 3 planting beds, as you can see, and paving around the perimeter. You get a sense of the collar that is at the street level or the curb. And so the lighter yellow, as Lance has rendered on the plan, are planting beds. And I'm sorry, I don't know specifically the species of plants, but our landscape plan does include the types of plants, and we can get into them if you'd like. And
No, thanks.
okay,
And also, street trees would have to be installed per
Right.
code.
Part of that discussion too would have to have before the Parking and Safety Committee.
Right.
And then they obviously make a recommendation on to council. And that's one of the things we've talked about is what does that look like? And these kinds of questions that you raise, Commissioner, as well, because we really don't have a per se model of this elsewhere in downtown. So those are all good questions that will have to be addressed during that process.
Any other questions?
And I guess that would be similar to the right of way that's being vacated. Is that going to?
Yeah, let me touch a little bit on that. Go back to this.
Kind of in the same realm.
Go back to the aerial here. When the Hayes building was approved back in 2000, along the northern portion of this site, there's a right-of-way that goes parallel with the site and perpendicular north that protrudes into the Hayes building. We just want to clean that up. That's city right-of-way now, and just, vacate it, and it becomes county property. Then they install the parcel lines where they wish. And also on the southwestern portion of the site, there's a finger that protrudes north and from the alley into the parking lot. And the portion that's adjacent to county property would also be vacated for the same reasons.
It's a paper alley. That means it's on paper only. It'll be vacated and it'll look the way it does now.
Okay, so we're not blocking it or
Oh, they're
stopping it.
the only adjacent user, and they've been using it that way, is the county.
Okay.
You need to speak up a little bit. We can't hear you in the back.
Okay, just remind everyone to speak directly into your microphones. Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
thank you.
At this time, I will ask if there is any public comment on this item. If so, please raise your hand. You'll be acknowledged and asked to come to the microphone. Seeing none, I turn it back to the commission.
I make a motion we approve 2015-1550 along with any and all staff recommendations.
Motion by Mr. Halter,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Simpson. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Mansoris?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Ms. Tuckerbuck?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes,
Mr. Lemke?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Chairwoman Keller?
Yes, motion carries.
make a motion we approve 2015-1551 1551, along with all staff's conditions and recommendations.
Motion by Mr. Halter,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Simpson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mansoura?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Ms. Tuckerbuck?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Lemke?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Chairwoman Keller?
Yes, that motion carries.
Make a motion we approve 2015-1552, along with all staff's recommendations and/or conditions.
Motion by Mr. Halter,
Second.
second by Vice Chair Simpson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mansoura?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Ms. Tuckerbuck?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Lemke?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Chairwoman Keller?
Yes, that motion carries. We thank you for joining us tonight, gentlemen. We will move on to item B. If the clerk would please read that item into the record.
Item B, 2015-1305, a request by Redwood Acquisitions LLC for approval of a final development plan for Phase 2 of the preserve at Quail Pass for 141 single-story apartment units on 22.35 acres located on the south side of Mill Run Crossing between the City Wetland Park and Glen Road.
Okay, Lance, you're the presenter on this as well?
Yes, thanks, Ms. Keller. The site is located just east of Phase 1 of this development, which is just south of Mill Creek, west of Glen Road. It's currently zoned to M1 with a PMU, Planned Mixed Use Overlay District. Here's an aerial of the site. It's fairly vacant. There is potentially some trees along the eastern property line, which we need the applicant to verify through a tree survey. I'll give you some history of this. In February of 2013, City Council approved a rezoning to allow 340 single-family apartment units along with the preliminary development plan that's in front of you on the screen. In July of that year, they approved Phase 1 of the final development plan, which was 94 apartments on about 15 acres. Phase 1 is almost built out. So they're in front of us here for Phase 2, which is 141 apartment units on just over 22 acres. Again, the zoning, it's a planned development, so there's specific development text identifying setbacks, building material types, and the like. Currently, the engineering department's reviewing the construction plans. Phase 2 of the development has one slight modification from Phase 1. This is Phase 2, and in Phase 2, they added one building and 4 units in this site. The revision of this site allows for better emergency access, allows pretty much for a loop configuration with a center spine street, if you will. And it also allows for the open areas. They're going to emulate the wetland park just west of Phase 1, instead of just being an open area for the majority of it. It's going to emulate that. So we think those revisions are appropriate, and per the development text, that would be considered a minor modification and administratively approved by the Planning and Community Development Director per the development text. This layout's pretty similar to the previous one. It's got loop streets again with the main spine going through the center. There's a large 1 acre open space in the southwestern quadrant of this phase. It would be programmed with gazebo grills and benches. There would be pedestrian connectivity within the development, would also connect to Mill Run Crossing bike path, and also would go through Phase 1, which would access the City Wetland Park. There are 28 additional parking spaces for visitors on this site in this phase to supplement the 282 spaces within the garage and on the driveway itself. The building on the extreme southeastern portion of the site, which is Building 47, may have to be modified, either moved or potentially one unit removed, because since this approval in 2013, Delaware County sewer and water regulations have changed. There's a little more buffer area required than previously. The engineers are going to work that through on the final engineering plans, and that will be determined at that point, and we're requesting that be made administratively, that revision. From an architecture perspective, there's 3 types of units that they're installing on the site or constructing. The first one in the blue, this is a new unit type. This is going to front Mill Road Crossing. The front door will be fronting Mill Run Crossing, and it'll have rear access for the garages. The ones in orange are the typical front-loaded buildings that are similar to what's in phase 1. And the green units are also similar to the ones in phase 1, which the end units are side-loaded. So that's pretty much the same mix we had in phase 1, except for the 3 buildings that are front and Mill Run Crossing. From a landscaping perspective, they're extending the mound in phase 1 through phase 2 to the eastern bound property line, and it should be the same height, material, and the like, be consistent with what's installed out there today. Also, there's a retention basin, on the southwestern portion of the site, and also 2 bio-retention areas in both open spaces to achieve compliance with the stormwater requirements. And also there's trees, shrubs, perennials, and the like planted throughout the site to make it an aesthetically pleasing development. From a tree preservation perspective, the trees along the eastern property line need to be surveyed to identify if any trees are going to be removed in this phase. If so, they have to comply with the Chapter 1116 of the tree preservation requirements. A lighting plan needs to be submitted and reviewed by staff for approval. I discussed pedestrian connectivity earlier. All the roadways, which are private but will be built to public standards, would have to comply with the fire department requirements. And the refuse collection would be tip cart service, similar to phase 1. And also this site is within the Delaware North Community Authority, and that paperwork needs to be completed prior to any building permit approvals. Staff recommends approval of the final development plan with 12 conditions. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions by the commission?
I have a question regarding the tree survey. Is that required to be complete prior to building permit issuance?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Probably before construction drawing.
Well, even before construction drawings?
Mr. Prahl?
Do you know if in phase 3, would that have any connection over to Glen Road or no?
Yeah, yes, it connects to Glen Road, and actually it connects to phase 2. There's 2 stubs that would cross that, for lack of a better word, Moody Ditch out there. So there's a connection to Glen Road and 2 stubs into the phases north of Moody Ditch.
Ms. Tuckerbuck?
Yeah, I apologize for just not knowing what this is. What is tip cart service when it comes to the refuse?
Well, it's individual service that you put out in front of your house. Typically in apartments, we require dumpsters.
Yes.
And we negotiated when this was initially approved to allow them to have tip cart service.
It's the blue toters that you
Blue
have at your house.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one. I just think that it's for the applicant, though.
Okay. Is the applicant here? Would you please come forward to the microphone and your name and address for the record, please?
Absolutely. John Latelier with Redwood Acquisition. I'm a Senior Vice President of Acquisition. My address is 23775 Commerce Park Drive, Suite 6, Beechwood, Ohio, 44122.
Okay. Elaine, did you get that?
Would you mind spelling your last name, please?
Sure, absolutely. Lateeulere.
Thank you so much.
You can add a couple more letters to that if you want.
I believe I will.
Okay.
I was just curious if you could share with us what the range of rents you'll be collecting up here?
Sure. So I can speak to what we're currently renting in the community. I believe our rents right now are starting at $13.50. That's for a middle unit with limited amenities on the inside. The rents are reaching in this area up north of 1,400, 1,450. I think we even have a unit or two that back up on the wetland park that we think are going to be north of 1,550 to 1,600. Those have not rented yet, but all indications from the market are that those are achievable.
Will the tenants be responsible for paying utilities?
Tenants do pay, they pay gas and electric direct to the gas company and the electric company. Water is paid by Redwood, and then there's a flat rate water bill that's then sent out to the tenant as a recoupment to that. The garbage collection is paid as part of our property taxes by Redwood.
So those water utilities aren't sub-metered to each unit?
No.
Is there a reason why you guys didn't look into that?
Yeah, so we've done it in the past. We discovered a lot of errors when we were sub-metering. We had a vendor that did that. It really became more management intent on the inside, which ultimately led to higher costs for our tenants and very wildly erratic bills at times. So we decided to make it much less stressful on our tenants. And, we pay the bills, we charge a flat rate, we do an audit quarterly to ensure that the water usage is not outside of what's being collected, and we'll adjust at that time. We're actually specifically precluded by law from making money on water, so we artificially subsidize those rates to ensure that at the end of the year, we don't want to be in the business of cutting rebate checks. So the tenants save a little bit of money because we artificially hold the rates down so that we aren't in the position where we'd be out of compliance.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Is there anything you'd like to add to staff's presentation?
No, I guess I would like to just thank Planning Commission and thank the City of Delaware. We've been very pleasantly, I don't want to say surprised. We've been very, very pleased with the success we've had in Delaware. We've been very pleased with the product we've been able to put on the ground here. And it's resonating, I think, with the people of Delaware. So I wanted to say thank you to both Delaware and staff for helping us out with that. I'm excited about the product that we're going to be bringing to phase 2. It is different. As a company, we continuously innovate on our product, and the willingness for staff to talk to us about how we can innovate on this site with some products that we've developed in the last 2 years has been very welcoming to us. I also look forward to being able to bring the wetland park look and feel into our community. I'll credit one of my tenants on this site actually for the idea. They said, this is the preserve at Quail Pass, and you have a lot of, planted grass open spaces, but we're right next to the wetland park. We'd really like to have some of that amenity brought internal to the site. So I really appreciate the opportunity to sit in front of you and talk about what I believe are going to be some really great improvements to phase 2 to be able to move this project forward and really be something that I think all of Delaware can be proud of.
Madam Chair and Commission, I just say echo those comments. I think Redwood and John and his team been good to work with. Made some changes here to phase 2, as you know, but I think they're for the better overall, and they've been very receptive to at least staff's input, and I think your input, and obviously council and the tenants' input who are there and living and enjoying the city of Delaware as well. So appreciate the effort on behalf of Redwood.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
What is the wish of the commission on this item? Oh, I'm sorry. There's no public hearing, but we will open this item up to the public if there's any member here that would like to make a comment on this item. Seeing none, I will ask what the wish of the commission is.
I'll make a recommendation for application 2015-1305 to approve that with all staff recommendations.
Motion by Vice Chair Simpson,
Second.
second by Mr. Lemke. Roll call, please.
Mr. Manzoris?
Yes.
Mr. Prahl?
Yes.
Ms. Tuckerbach?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Lemke?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Chairwoman Keller?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to item C on the agenda. Since we stated to the public we wouldn't begin until 7:45, why don't we just take a short break? And then when we reconvene, we will handle item C. We'll take a 5-minute break.
What's that? Well, that's just it. I mean, I can see why they're charging in the yard. Oh, yeah.
I call the meeting of the Planning Commission back to order. Before I have the clerk read item C into the record, I want to welcome you all to our chambers here. And I want to just explain to you a little bit about how this process will work. I understand that it may be some of your first times joining us for a Planning Commission meeting. So after the clerk reads the item into the record, we're going to have staff give a presentation on the item. The applicant will then have a chance to present any additional information. We'll have a time for commission member questions and comments. And at that time, I will also dedicate a portion of the meeting to public comment. There is no official public hearing required for this case. However, since we strive to maintain a fair, open, and respectful forum, we're going to open it up for some public comment. We're a city of good neighbors, and we feel like everyone's opinion matters. So to help us move through the meeting expeditiously, we're going to allow 3 to 5 minutes per comment, and each person will be given only one opportunity to speak. In order to speak, you need to have signed the papers that are out there on the table. I have some names up here, but if anyone would like to add their name, it's not too late to sign the paper, and then we'll get it up here to make sure that you're on the list to speak. So when I do open it up to public comment, I'm going to call you to the microphone for the record, and then you can make your comment. I am going to ask my vice chair to help us keep the time. So again, there'll be 3 to 5 minutes, and we're going to hold you to that so that everyone has a chance to speak. During the time of public comment, we ask that any and all questions be posed to commission members and not to city staff. Commission members will record those questions, and then at the end of the public comment period, we will take a time to make sure that all those questions get answered. But what we want to make sure is that all the questions are able to be asked, and then we can answer them all at once, because chances are some will overlap, some will be able to be grouped together, and it just makes a lot more sense than to have a back and forth question and answer going on. We'll record the questions, and then we'll come back at the end and answer them all. I also ask the commission members not answer each individual public comment, but we wait until the conclusion of public comment, and then we'll have a chance to address any issues that are raised. That will make sure that each individual that would like to speak is able to do so without interruption, and then when it's our turn to speak, we can do so without interruption also. We also ask that you try not to make your comments repetitive, and that if that point has already been made, then let's move on to new points so that we make sure that everything that we need to talk about is relevant and we're not just repeating the same things. And my daughter was telling me today about, my 9-year-old is learning about the civic process. And I told her to watch us on YouTube so that she can see the civic process actually happening. So we're glad to see you all. Sometimes we have trouble filling these chairs. So we are really glad to see you. And if anyone is looking for a chair, we have one over here. We have one over here.
Couple, 3 over here.
We also have some chairs out there in the hallway, so we want to make sure everyone is sitting who wants to. We can grab some extra chairs if we need. Okay, and with that, I will ask the clerk to please read item C into the record.
Item C, 2015-1511, a request by Speedway LLC for approval of a preliminary development plan for an approximate 4,608 square foot Speedway gas station and convenience store on approximately 12.912 acres located on the northwest corner of US 23 North and Hills Miller Road on property zone B4, General Business District.
Okay, Mr. Eflin, you're the presenter on this?
I am, Madam Chair, members of the commission. First of all, let me say, as you did, and echo your comments, appreciate everybody being here tonight. It is good to see all the chairs filled. We often don't have that during our development cases, and it's good to be part of the process. We certainly, as staff, myself, my staff, and Lance Schultz, Matt Weber, Jennifer Stockler, and the other city staff that work hard on these development cases, respect everybody's opinion, planning commission, citizens, city council's decision at the end of the day, and also the right for people to respectfully disagree if that's where things wind up at the end of the day. So with that, I want to also note that the applicant, we don't make the application as staff or as planning commission or city council. The applicants make those applications before the city, as most of you in this room are here for the previous two cases, and the same process unfolded for those. An applicant had a piece of ground and made a development application, and it's our job as staff to process that application to the best of our ability and the resources that are available to us. The staff role in the process is again, to process that application and make sure that those applications comply with our ordinances and regulations. As part of the rest of the process in this particular case, that also involves review by police and fire departments, public works, engineering, and public utilities as well. Just to let you know, because I think a lot of people don't understand how much effort goes into producing the process of a case of development application and how much staff is involved. This case is a preliminary development plan for the, as we're calling it, the proposed Speedway site of Hills Miller and US 23, as you all know. The process is basically a four-step process. We've outlined this before in the town hall meeting and in various emails and such. And it's outlined in our staff report, which is available on the website. If you haven't had a chance to review that, we try to put quite a lot of information into that, as well as the applicant submission. So the process is 4 steps to achieve before you go into building permits and even break ground on a site. In this particular case, what happens is that a preliminary development plan comes forward as a formal application. That's why we're all here this evening. It gets set before the Planning Commission for review and recommendation. They make a recommendation to City Council. City Council will make the ultimate decision for us all with respect to the preliminary development plan. Then, and typically, there are a number of conditions, as you saw in the previous cases, as you've perhaps seen in the staff report. We'll go over tonight a little bit. The applicant works on those conditions, works on many of the fine-grained details and the final development plan details that are required by our code. This case is actually, after all, preliminary tonight, and so not all the details are known yet. Many of them are, but not all of them. And then the applicant would go into a period of final development plan preparation, and they would submit another application. That, again, goes through a 2-step process whereby it comes to Planning Commission. Planning Commission reviews the case and makes a recommendation to City Council, and once again, City Council will make the ultimate decision, again, for all of us with respect to the final development plan case. So that's the basic outline of the process for this particular site. Not every site necessarily goes through that process. I want to make that clear. We kind of live in the world as staff of these things, and so sometimes it's hard for us to remember that not everybody knows the entire process, but or understands that other sites in the city or in the community, and I know this borders Troy Township. Troy Township has different rules and regulations and processes as well, but not every site goes through this particular process. Some sites require a rezoning or a comprehensive plan amendment or a conditional use permit or some other permits that may be required in preliminary development. That's what we call this part of the process. The proposal tonight does not require any of that. We'll go through that a little bit in terms of the base zoning at play here. So let's get right into it. The location, as we all know, is approximately 13 acres at the corner of Hills Miller and US 23, as shown on this diagram. The zoning of the site, and this is critical to what process any development has to then go through. So the basic zoning on this site is a B4 general business district. This district permits a wide range of uses, wide range of automobile-oriented uses. It even permits hotels and motels. It permits the gas station that's proposed tonight. It permits the convenience store that's proposed tonight on this site by right. It's permitted, and that's a term we use, by right. So that means that as long as it achieves compliance with the rest of the regulations of the city of Delaware, the use is allowed by right. And that includes all the uses that they've submitted to this point. So the preliminary development plan is not like a zone change, and it's not like a conditional use permit or even a comprehensive plan amendment where we talk about what uses may or may not be allowed on the site. In this case, it's allowed by right. As you can see on this map, there's a little bit darker red that's zone B3 that has a different set of uses with it that you can use the land for. And some of these kinds of uses are similar to B4, but not the same, and may or may not require other processes as well. So for the purposes of this site, the use proposed is not in question, and this process is really about the preliminary, and I do emphasize preliminary, development plan review, to be followed if they achieve approval of the preliminary by a final development plan review, as I noted. So this land was annexed in approximately 1968, along with 220 some acres of ground, some of which would become Oakhurst subdivision and other developments in the area. You can see some of the area outlined on this map as well. We have an aerial photograph for reference, and should we need it. There is a heavily treed portion of the site to the north. There's a treed portion kind of in the middle of the site, and then there are two open areas of the site as well. So let's talk about and kind of walk you through how we analyze, at least as staff. Again, Planning Commission will make its own determination, and ultimately City Council, but how we review and analyze the proposed preliminary site plan. We've colored up the site plan a little bit here so that it's a little bit easier to see big pieces that we're going to talk about. But the site is just a shade under 13 acres in size. And the applicant is proposing to develop about 4.8 acres of the site. This is outlined in yellow, blue, and light green, as you can see kind of in the middle and on the left-hand side of the screen. That leaves about 8 acres left on the site. 3 of those acres are shown in darker green hatched on the right side of this figure. To the right is to the north. 23 is on the bottom of this figure, and Hills Miller is on the left-hand side, just to orient you. But the 3 acres shown in dark green are proposed for a permanent conservation easement. Part of this came out of conversations with the applicant, as well as hearing from the town hall meeting and other conversations with respect to environmental concerns, to preserve the stream corridor that runs through there and permanently protect it, but also to set some boundaries with respect to if the use could expand. There were some questions early on about, could this get any bigger than what they were looking to build on? Well, with a permanent conservation easement, it would essentially salt away that portion of the property in permanent conservation easement in perpetuity. And that's about 3 acres. And we'll talk a little bit about the Backage Road here as well in the future. That's about the only adaptation, that and the bike path and the sidewalk that could go through that conservation easement, but not future development of the site. It's important to note that that is not required by the City of Delaware. It is not required by a preliminary development plan process. That was proffered by the applicant in this case to address some of those issues. And they can certainly speak to that during their portion of the presentation. I also want to note for you that, go back to this idea a little bit again about the difference in the zoning on this site. There are many other developments in the city that have had to go through rezonings and preliminary or comprehensive plan amendments and conditional use permit processes, in addition to, in some cases, preliminary development plan review. Those include developments, just to bring it home for you, those include uses such as the Glenwood Commons Shopping Center, or the Turkey Hill development on the south side of town, or the Panera Bread on the west side of town. Also went through a rezoning and a comp plan amendment and a conditional use permit as well. Again, a different process than we're in tonight. Really, whether staff or the commissioner or anybody likes that, that's just the way it is with respect to the zoning on this site. And there's nothing that we can particularly do about that as staff. So I want to walk you through the site just a bit and direct your attention, commissioners, as well as the public, to the decision criteria for preliminary development plan, which is captured in 1129.09. It was attached to the staff report. And that's really the decision criteria that should help guide you in this process, as I know the commissioners know. So the general site engineering, again, this is preliminary, but utilities are available and proximate to this site. Around the eastern side of this site and the southern side of this site is a major water line and a significant easement around both of those locations. Sewer is just down 23, runs in front of the shopping center there, and the applicant would have to bring the utilities up to and through this site to service their site, and also to provide for easements at any rate for future connectivity for other properties. And that is our standard as our city. The next piece I want to go over is the road and access. I know there are a lot of comments and questions and concerns with respect to roads and accesses and improvements for such in the area. So I'll give you a general overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to our engineering staff, or the in-house experts in roads and access, and let them have a few remarks with respect to the staff report here. But as you can see, there are two curb cuts proposed. One is a right-in, right-out only off of US 23. This is on the bottom of the diagram. And one is a full access curb cut along Hills Miller Road, which is on the left side of the diagram. There was an approved traffic study that was approved by our engineers and ODOT and the county as well. That lays out in quite a bit of detail traffic counts and turning movements and improvements that may be required as a result of the development. That's also available on our website if you want to read through the entire document for yourself. And I know some of you have. So there are a number of improvements in a summary format that come out of that particular document. And again, we don't know all the details yet because this is preliminary. But the improvements that would be required include improvements to US 23 and Hills Miller intersection, on US 23 itself, and on Hills Miller Road, approximately 600 feet back from US 23 as well. These are major improvements that would be required, and perhaps Matt can go into a little more detail. There's also what we would call drop lanes, deceleration and acceleration lanes required coming out of the right-in, right-out off of US 23. And that's standard engineering practice on US 23 and other roadways. Finally, in terms of access, the site can be circulated by all of our emergency equipment and all of the proposed traffic. The applicants demonstrated that to our satisfaction. You can see on the kind of the top side of this diagram, there is a backage road proposed. If you follow the line from the access point off of Hills Miller Road, there's a start of a backage road proposed that would then end where you see the yellow today, but provide an easement all the way to the north side to provide future access in case any property to the north were to develop. This is a standard practice in around the city, but particularly the US 23 corridor, to allow backage roads or frontage roads, depending on where they are on the site, to accommodate traffic not immediately out on the main roadway surfaces. So Matt, did you want to make some remarks with respect to access and roads, please?
I did, yes. Thank you, Dave. And first of all, I want to make sure I reintroduce myself to everyone. I don't get a chance to come to Planning Commission as much as I wish. Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
All right. I'm Matt Weber, Deputy City Engineer. I oversee Traffic and Engineering Services Division within Public Works. Part of our review team, I'd like to say, on this project has been, of course, Jennifer, and you all know Jennifer. We also have Jessica Ormeroyd on our staff. She's our city's traffic engineer. She's a professional engineer, but she's also a licensed professional traffic operations engineer. It's not an easy accreditation to obtain. It's the highest level of accreditation in her field. She has had numerous hours involved in reviewing the study to date, and she'll continue to be involved in reviewing the final engineering for the improvements that I'm about to discuss. So I'm here to assure you that we have a lot of eyes on this project. There's a lot of cars and a lot of trucks on 23, and we're here, working very hard, make sure we review submittals and compare them to best practices. And as I'll outline here in the next few minutes, the study and what we have required as far as improvements for this site a lot of times exceed the expectations. And I think it's very important for me to highlight some of those things. I'm going to mention a few numbers from the study. Obviously, the studies, the approved traffic studies, is pretty thick. So just because I touch on 3 or 4 components of the study, I don't want that to devalue the rest of the study. It's a solid study. It's been prepared by professionals and reviewed by a lot of professionals. So
Can everyone hear in the back? Will you raise your hand if you can't hear? Can't hear? Want to make sure everyone can.
I'll continue to try to speak better into the microphone.
Okay, thank you.
As Dave outlined, the proposed development has secured approval for 2 access points. The first being a full movement access point on Hills Miller Road that's located as far as practical from 23. That's obviously to ensure that there's plenty of stacking for turning movements between US 23 and the proposed access point on Hills Miller. And there's also a second access point proposed on US 23, and that's being shown and was approved as right in, right out only movements. The first component of the traffic study I'd like to highlight is the horizon year. A lot of times, in this case, the required horizon year, that is the year that we project out volumes and measure the level of service of the intersection nearby, was required to be 10 years. In this case, the applicant agreed at our prompting to go ahead and look out 20 years to 2035 conditions. So I think that's important to note. It's a very conservative approach to the study, and as we go through some of the components of the study, you'll see that we made some pretty conservative assumptions. The ADT on US 23, a lot of people, that's probably the most common question we get. Currently is around 35,000.
What does ADT stand for?
Number of cars per day.
Okay.
Number of total vehicles per day that travel US 23. It's about 35,000 cars per day, which is extremely high for a 4-lane highway. The current counts on Hills Miller Road is reflected in the study and verified by our department are 4,500 cars per day on Hills Miller Road. The study itself utilized a conservative, what's called growth rate, and that's the percentage at which traffic is assumed to grow over the 10 years, or in this case 20 years, of almost 2%. Actually, it's 1.7%. So that's also another conservative assumption that went into the study itself. The couple of the key components of the study are the trip generations. And The best way to describe what trip generation is, it's basically during a peak hour or a given day, how many trips are coming to the site, how many trips are leaving the site. Another term I want to throw out there is pass-by trips. And that is separate from a trip that's generated from somebody new coming to the store. Instead, that would be considered a vehicle that was passing by and pulls in and happens to visit the store, only because they were traveling down US 23 anyways. And referring to the study, there's a couple really key components that I wanted to point out. The total number of trips that the total number of AM trips generated by the development itself is predicted to be an opening day about 172 trips. And in addition, of those 172 trips, it is predicted that approximately 106 trips were pass-by trips, i.e. over 50% of the cars that are going to be coming to or leaving Speedway were on 23 anyways and happened to be passing by and decided to stop and visit the store. So less than half are going to be new trips to and from the site. And the PM peak, it's a little higher. It's 230 trips with approximately 130 of those trips being pass-by trips and not new trips to the city, to the development. The other parameter that's really important to point out is what's called level of service. And the level of service was examined at the existing 23 and Hills Miller signalized intersection. The level of service today, currently, and I don't mean to flip through the study without you having the visuals here, but it's important to point out that the difference between what's projected delay at these intersection was examined is very, very minor change in level of service in the horizon year of 2035. We actually, what was approved was that the analysis that was approved shows that it's about approximately in 2035, with the improvements they're proposing, it's going to average out at a C. A C level of service on US 23 is not that bad. It's actually a lot of locations we have calculated level of service in some of the areas further south to be F. Some of them are very, very poor level of service with delays well over 90 seconds. The predicted level of service, i.e. the average delay at the 23 Hills Miller intersection in year 2035 is going to be predicted at approximately 28 seconds, which really isn't all that bad compared to other intersections to the south. One of my last points, so I have two more points. So one important component of the improvements that the developer has agreed to do as part of this project is widen some of the lane widths on US 23. We have out there now, and some locations, 10 and 11 foot lanes, 10 foot 10 foot existing turn lanes and 11 foot through movement lanes. Those are bare minimum lane widths for a highway with characteristics as US 23. Those are bare minimum lane widths. The applicant has proposed, and we've required the turn lanes the through lanes and the turn lane be widened to 12 feet, which is the mark we want to see for new highway improvements. It doesn't sound like a big difference, but that extra 1 or 2 feet gives the drivers a lot of comfort and a lot of added safety. So we're very pleased to see that that's going to be part of the improvements to US 23. The improvements are going to be full width along the development. They're going to extend to the south beyond Hills Mill, and they're going to extend well north of the intersection. The improvements along 23 are not fully designed. They're outlined. The foundation has been set by the study. But again, there's going to be tweaks. We've gotten a lot of questions so far about, is 285 feet enough? Should you be at 320 feet for a turn lane? we'll decide during final engineering, we'll get it right. There's plenty of ways to engineer your way out of a 40-foot gap in what you're trying to achieve versus what you can achieve. We're confident that during the final engineering process and during the signal timing process, which happens after we approve the plans and the improvements actually being made, our engineers will go out and tweak the timing. We have lots of tools in our toolbox. So we're confident that this intersection is going to be designed to the highest standards as set forth by the City of Delaware and by the State Department of Transportation.
Thanks,
With
Matt.
that, Dave?
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'll continue on here, and then we can proceed as per usual. So that's traffic. I think there's been a lot of analysis done and improvements suggested. Hopefully that answered some of the questions that we've received and maybe some of the questions that you've had as members of the public and as of the commission this evening as well. A note on pedestrian connectivity. There's a bike path proposed at the western edge of the back access drive. That's in accordance with our general bikeway plan and our normal customary practice. Again, that would stop at the edge of the improvements here, as you see, the yellow in this particular case. But through the conservation easement area with the backage road, there would be sufficient room to continue that path to the north at some point in the future, should that ever be developed. At this point, there is no proposal to develop into that area at this time. Also along US 23 and Hills Miller Road, a sidewalk is proposed. You'll note in the staff report that what we have done with developments in the south of town and the east and the west, and even to the extent that we've gotten them into the north of town, along US 23, we seek your guidance and City Council's guidance as to whether or not we have a sidewalk in that particular location adjacent to the roadway, or if we simply make sure we have an easement if we don't have right-of-way width, so that connectivity could be provided in the future, and take a payment in lieu of that construction. Again, we've done that in other cases. The idea is to get the pedestrian connectivity through and on a site, but not have it necessarily right along US 23. So that's pedestrian connectivity. The site configuration. Let's talk about this just a little bit. The building convenience store proposed is a little over 4,600 square feet. To put that in a sense of scale for you in the real world, the existing speedway that was just upgraded at Troy and Central Avenue here in the city of Delaware is approximately just a little bit over 4,000 square feet. This is proposed then to be about 600 square feet, give or take more, than that particular development for the convenience store size. So hopefully that gives you a relative sense of scale and size of what we're talking about here. I know I've gotten that question before as well. There are 7 vehicular fueling bays on the east side of the building. That front US 23, you see them outlined in blue here toward the bottom of the screen. Again, that's US 23. Those are 7 bays. Typically a bay would have 2 pumps in each bay. There are also, as many of you know, the other blue piece here are diesel fueling stations. There are 3 bays shown, and Speedway can talk a little bit about how this works as a matter of course, but those 3 bays are entered into from the south and you exit toward the north. Now, there's only one way to go into them, and then typically a larger vehicle like a semi-truck would have 2 tanks on each side and be able to fuel both of those tanks at the same time. So there's looks like there's 3 islands in there. Or 4 islands in there. There are 4 islands in there, but there's only 3 stations to fuel at. So I wanted to make that clear as well. The applicant does not have to by the basic zoning, but at our prompting and at their own behest, they have pro-offered that there would be no parking spaces. You can see no parking spaces or circulation aisles, but there are no dedicated parking spaces for semi-trucks or RVs or any oversized vehicles provided on this site. They've also pro-offered that there would be no overnight parking signs and that would be monitored and enforced by Speedway staff. Since they've pro-offered that, we've also included that as a condition of zoning approval, so we would be able to enforce on that as well as the city of Delaware. But again, I want to make clear that that's not a requirement of this particular zoning and site. We have a number of other elements that we discuss in our staff report in terms of outside merchandise areas being delineated as we go into a final development plan. Some of those ancillary items like the normal propane and tank cage and those kinds of things, the ice machine that you see would be around at the side of the building and would be painted to match the building. And this is consistent with our code and consistent with other developments that have those kinds of appurtenances. Again, they're proposing to place the permanent conservation easement over 3 acres or about 25% of the site. We did, as staff, urge them to do that, and they do not have to, and they've pro-offered to do that as well in this case. I want to let you know, give you a sense of scale, because we put these things in the staff report and up on the TVs, and I think it's easy to lose a sense of scale. But the building, the convenience store building, the light green in the middle of the diagram toward the left, is approximately 160 feet from US 23. So just to give you a scale of really how far off the road it is, and it's about 380 feet from Hills Miller Road. So quite a bit off of the road surfaces, and that lets us do some landscaping and some other gateway enhancement improvements that we'll go through here in a minute. Now, the one other thing I want to note about this, because there have been some questions raised with respect to the fuel tanks and how that works on gas station sites. The fuel tanks are, the city of, let me back up, the city of Delaware will do all of the building and inspection on this site for the buildings that you see. That is normal. We're a certified building department through the state and every day for all kinds of projects. The tanks are governed by the state fire marshal. The Speedway would have to seek a permit through them, go through their process, have the tank certified. In today's world, they could talk a little bit more about this. Tanks are double wall tanks, and there's an alarm system outside of the tank should anything happen to leak. That's monitored, and there are reports that have to go, I believe, daily at least, on a regular basis to state agencies to be in conformance with those permits. But that is not a local or a city process. That's a state fire marshal process. Okay, let's move along. Preliminary building design. As part of the preliminary development plan approval process, it is not required that an applicant submit any of this that you're going to see, elevations or architecture, building materials. Again, we requested, and I think Speedway recognized that they wanted to put this on the table to show what they had in mind, to get an early feedback from the community as well as Planning Commission and City Council, and get that feedback so that as we go into a final development plan process, again, you heard a couple of them tonight in the kind of detail that we go into in a final process. What adaptations, what changes should be made as we go into that process. We have design criteria requirements for the city. They are pretty open. There's a wide range of architectural styles. If you look around the city, you can go from Glenwood Commons to tire discounters to Aldi's to CVS on the west side to Panera to Turkey Hill to the Walmart that was approved in the south side but never constructed. And there's a wide range of design criteria or design motifs and designs that come out and emerge at the end of the day. In this case, some of the upgrades over what we would characterize as prototypical architecture in this case are the inclusion of a mansard roof, and it doesn't really show that well in the renderings, but a mansard roof is the roof projection you see here on both of the canopies as well as the building. It's a little higher, it's a little more pitched. It's giving you more of sort of that feel that's kind of in that area. Also, I don't think it comes through well on the renderings, but the stone showed on the wainscoting and on the column materials would be a cultured Delaware limestone, not dissimilar from what you see around town at a lot of different developments from Turkey Hill to the Speedway that got redeveloped on Troy and Central and just many of our developments. Additionally, on the canopy, you can see that prototypically Speedway would have a series of stripes and colors in white and red on that canopy fascia. It's tan in this application, again, to kind of make it fade a little bit into the background as much as possible. And we'll talk about signage here in a little bit. They also use brick on the building and, again, have a minimal footprint for this particular use on this site. But we would be happy to have any feedback and comments. We think that, at least preliminarily, this is certainly in keeping with the McDonald's conceptual plans that have come before this body, as well as other entryway and commercial projects, both to the east and the west and the south and north of the city through time, again, from Myers gas station to tire discounters and CVS and Panera on the west side, and again, even in keeping with those developments. It does comply with our general design criteria at this point, and it is consistent with past approvals for similarly situated and zoned pieces of property. I do want to indicate that there's been some discussion about gateways and corridors. We do have a gateway and corridor plan. I want to be clear that in the comprehensive plan and the gateway and corridor plan, Hillsmiller Road in 23 is not designated as a gateway. That being said, we also encourage the applicant to provide these upgrades from prototypical architecture, and we want to make sure that this would be something with quality materials and arrangement and design together with the landscaping. And let me touch on that because the gateway and corridor plan really only deals with signage, monument signage, and landscaping in terms of trees and bushes and shrubs and that sort of landscaping, but also in terms of stone piers. Some of that you're seeing emerge in front of the auto dealerships on 23 South. We have suggested, we have recommended and conditioned our approval on the inclusion, even though this isn't a designated gateway, of a stone monolith, which is included in that plan and would be similar to the monolith at the Turkey Hill site as well. So this starts to set the overall stone and landscaping and gateway stage and feel for this area. It is the whole corridor to the north is obviously a gateway corridor to our community, and we're concerned with the overall design and adaptation on this particular site, as we are with any of the other sites throughout the community. Let's talk a little bit about trees and tree removal. This diagram is obviously impossible for you to see from the back of the room. It is included in the staff report, and so you can pull that down off the web if you like. But what we make applicants do, and you heard this in a previous case tonight, is document for us all the trees of 6 inches caliper or greater. Those count under our code as major trees. And so that's what this diagram does. And it tells us the major trees and the variety of those trees. It also tells us the trees that will be preserved and the trees that would be removed as proposed by the applicant in this case. Approximately, in the conservation easement, there are approximately a little over 2,500 caliper inches of trees of those 6-inch variety or greater that would be preserved within that conservation easement. There would be approximately almost 1,300 caliper inches of trees removed to affect the proposed development. 214 caliper inches of trees would be replaced of those trees they're removing, and that would be in addition to street trees and front yard trees that they have to put in. That leaves a net of a little over 1,000 caliper inches of trees. Commissioners, as you know, that would equate to, at $100 a caliper inch per our regulations, an estimated payment in lieu of replanting to the city of a little over $105,000 to the tree replacement fund. That fund is used to replace trees around the city as needed. So that's what this diagram shows. Let's talk a little bit about landscaping and screening. Again, the building is set back significantly from the roadways, but what you can see from this diagram, again, is a landscaping approach that layers the landscaping from both Hills Miller and 23, particularly from Hills Miller Road. All those circles and dots are either saved trees or newly planted trees. And the circle of the dot shows you at build out approximately how big that tree is going to be. There would also be bushes and other landscaping required around the parking lot as well. We are also conditioning our approval on inclusion of stone piers, again, to meet that gateway and corridor plan along 23, and inclusion of a monolith, details to be provided with the final development plan. That will set that gateway and corridor feel and design, in addition to whatever the final design is for the building. One thing I want to note for you is, again, this major water line, it doesn't show up great on this diagram, but the major water line is basically around the perimeter of this site, and there's also an easement around that. Should our utility department ever need to perform maintenance on that line. That easement means that basically we see the line of the trees on here is where the back edge of that easement line is. We can't have stone piers or monoliths or landscaping or any of their site improvements proposed within that easement area. And so they've accounted for that on Hills Miller and 23 as well, and get the landscaping in and the stone piers and the monoliths. Again, I want to note that landscaping plans to this level of detail are not required with preliminary development plan, but we want to get feedback and show you what the applicant is thinking at this point in time. A little bit on proposed signage. Again, signs are not required at preliminary development plan. They're required at final. But we wanted to show you here, and again, we prompted Speedway to produce these documents and show us what they were thinking. 2 monument-based signs. Again, these would have to be on the Delaware Cultured limestone base, which is what these diagrams are showing, would be at the right-in, right-out location and at the Hills Miller Road access location. One of our conditions of approval in here is at the Hills Miller Road location, a monument-based sign, be more in accordance with it's a little bit smaller monument-based sign that was just improved at Troy and Central Avenue Speedway location as well. These 2 signs are allowed by right and by code for this particular site because they're on a corner, so they can have both of these signs. But that is our condition to make the one on Hills Miller slightly smaller and more in accordance with that existing speedway. They're also showing internally illuminated signage on the canopy for the word Speedway, which will be facing US 23, and 2 Speedway logos on either side of the vehicular canopy. There would be directional signage on the site. Again, I want to note that the circulation to the back of the site to those diesel pumps is entering from the south and exiting to the north, and so some of the signage that you see here is relative to that as well. Well, that would conclude our staff report unless the engineers or Lance, if there was something I've forgotten that you want to add, please let us know. But I'll get you here in a second, man. I do want to let you know that at this point, staff from the various departments find that the case complies for our preliminary development plan approval standards. We do have 19 conditions on this particular approval, which is fairly consistent with preliminary approvals for commercial developments, guys, around the city. Matt, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I completely skipped over the condition of Hills Miller Road in its existing state. It's nowhere near the strength to handle truck traffic. The applicant has committed to basically reconstruct the roadway from 23 to the proposed access point and widen the road. I also wanted to stress the importance of the development of a backage road. As you had stated, Dave, it's in compliance with the 2001 ODOT City Access Management Plan along US 23. What that'll do, if something develops to the north, it gives vehicles other options to get in and out of the site, or if they're going to cross-utilize the 2 locations, they don't have to go out onto the highway to get to the other location. It's an important redundant connection, and in the name of and overall safety of the highway and the developments that might occur along there.
Thank you, Matt. We do recommend that approval with 19 conditions, finding that it complies with our regulations at this time. For that recommendation of approval, Madam Chair, members of the commission, I did want to note as we go into the public comment portion of this process that we were receiving comment via email from several individuals, and I just want to note for the record, I won't summarize all these that I sent on to you. Comments from Eddie and Lynn England, John McGrail earlier today with some pictures attached, John McGrail from earlier today with a Speedway traffic study retort PDF attached, Larry Schneider, Rich Latham, communication from R.D. Lawrence II, a communication from Luis Barto, and a lengthy communication, I think it was 50-plus pages, from Jim, I'm sorry, bear with me, Jim and Marnie. Sorry, I don't have the last name right at hand, Molina. So heads are nodding that they received these communications and they've had an opportunity to review those tonight. With that, I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, are there any questions for staff before we bring the applicant forward?
I have a question actually for Mr. Weber. When you were talking about level of service and the average delay on Hills Miller at approximately 28 seconds, is that averaged based on a 24-hour day?
No, that's worst case scenario based on peak hour.
Okay, all right, ladies and gentlemen.
And that's overall average for all the movements. Some movements may be worse. Some movements may be far better, but the parameter and the mark that we try to hit is for the overall average level of service for the intersection. We don't ignore certain movements if they model as an F. We try to improve those with either signal timing or extended turn lanes or what have you, but overall it models at a C.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to keep in mind that outbursts are not going to be tolerated because we want to give everyone the opportunity to speak and because we want you to be able to hear what the reply is. If we have this type of outburst, that's going to prevent that from happening. So I'm going to ask you to refrain. And everyone's going to be given a chance to comment. So the time to express your feelings on that is not when our staff members are trying to answer a question. Okay, so I'm just going to ask for your respect with that. And with that, I will ask if the applicant would like to come forward. Okay, can we bring the applicant forward and then?
Mr. Staff.
Okay, hold off applicant. We'll handle this question.
Okay, I want to make sure I understand. When I look at this layout up here, I see a easement coming across and going across the proposed property they're going to ease to us. There's two easement lines in there. Are they water and sewer, or is that for the road that could be built back in there, or what is that?
Are you talking along 23 and Hills Mill Road, Commissioner?
I'm talking on Hills Miller Road.
Okay.
Coming right in that full intersection there.
Okay.
I show on mine an easement that runs across and then across that little white island that's just beyond the blue and then makes a ring up here and this one up here. Yeah, is that?
That's for the package road.
That's for the back.
That is for the road. So that road will actually run across their driveway. Is that pavement beyond that little white island?
That is correct. That's pavement, and I think you can see it coming across maybe in this tree diagram a little bit better even to points north. So that would be eventually a shared backage road. Today, as they build their site, it would be part of that backage road that would be allow circulation around our site.
Okay, so
that would be pavement.
so that road is gonna go, if that property to the north is developed.
Correct.
Make sure I understand that would be the road to that.
Correct.
So they're gonna use the driveway or the exit from the gas station.
That's correct.
I've never seen anything like that in my life, to be honest with you. I just don't understand how all of a sudden the property exit from the trucks are going to stop at that island. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that is going to become a street, could become a street someday.
It'd be a private backage road. Matt and Jennifer can speak a little bit to this. I wanted to show you the next property to the north is a single parcel that runs all the way to Clear Run. So should that parcel be developed, this would provide a backage road for that, like it would do for Speedway. But that parcel to the north would also have access to Clear Run Road and presumably perhaps some kind of limited access.
So that will
to
not
be
be-
determined to US 23.
So that will not be a city street.
That would not be a city street.
Okay, that answers that question. Now, I guess the next one, and then I will, if you want me to defer this to the applicant when he comes up, under the staff zoning and staff analysis for zoning, at the bottom of the second page, going to the top of the third page, it says, however, in an effort to demonstrate their commitment to preserving these areas as much as practical and to addressing the question about further expansion and the proposed use of the site, the applicant is volunteering to place a permanent conservation easement on their property, which would run with the land. This will effectively permanently limit the extent of any development on this site in the area proposed with this case, while allowing the aforementioned backage road to be done. So do I understand that that means that from that, basically from the yellow, going to the west, okay, that land would not be developed?
Going to the north where you see the dark green shading.
No, not to the north. I'm talking about that land to the west.
The land to the west is not proposed to be in a permanent conservation easement, but it is encumbered with a stream corridor in that area. And but based on state regulations with respect to that stream corridor, that's why we can make the statement it would effectively keep them from going to the west. Now, up near Hills Miller, right at the corner there, they could bump out just a little bit to the west there into that area that you're describing, Commissioner. But as a practical matter, they are putting on the table, at least to us, and certainly you should ask them when they come up here, that this is the footprint that you would see now and into the future.
Okay, now I answered that question. I've got one more I just want to get clarification on. On the old Obie's property,
Correct.
which is
Yes.
cut in there,
The lower left-hand.
is that in the city?
Obie's property is not within the city. It's within Troy Township, so we don't have any zoning or other authority with respect to that particular property.
Because I guess, and I know since we don't, that kind of answers my question, but my concern is that when they come out of the speedway and they're going right, we have an acceleration lane there. And there's going to be a turn lane up at Hills Miller. I could see a little problem if anything got opened up again in the Obies. But we have no control over that.
We
do
have no control. I think I would certainly probably speak for the rest of the staff, and maybe even for you, that it would be, while it would be nice to incorporate that into this and perhaps even make it just open space and or part of the green space element of this plan, it's not in the city and it's not part of this proposal,
Okay.
and there's no way for us to force it.
And that answers that question too. Thank you. That's all I have for the staff.
Are there any other commission member comments before I bring the applicant forward? Okay, Mr. Lemke?
One additional question. I know in here we talk about the, and I think Mr. Holzer hit on it a little bit, but I'm just trying to find the word exactly here, but the permanent conservation easement, yeah, right above my underline. Funny how that worked out. So it says in there it's permanent, but then it also talks a little bit about, I think, ways that they eventually could go back through that. So help me understand, because I think this has come up on other cases where we say things are permanent, but at the end of the day, I just want to know how solid that
that permanence is. I think
Yep.
that's probably a question a
It
fair amount of
would
people
be a
have.
permanent conservation easement, which that language is typically that there is no construction for these buildings or this kind of development. The only consideration with respect to that that would be allowed in the future is that continuation of the backage road as we've described and the bike path that goes along with that, and the possible sidewalk along US 23, which at this point is primarily shown within right-of-way, but could be also in an easement as well. The rest of it would be permanently preserved. That's recorded documents and easements recorded at the courthouse, and doesn't allow anything but what it states you can have in that area, and that would be those two elements as we understand it today.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Okay, Mr. Manzaros.
My question is for Matt or Jennifer. For the traffic that's heading south, will there be a flashing yellow caution sign letting motorists know that the light at the intersection will be changing?
Prepare to stop and flashing?
Yes.
If it's not in the preliminary plan, we certainly will consider that. I believe there's that facility there now, so that will be maintained.
That will be maintained. Okay, my only concern is because of customers exiting the right turn out of Speedway onto 23, they're not going to be aware of that flashing sign. Someone might be trying to, beat the light, and I'm just concerned that there could be, some sort of mishap occur there.
That's where it's important when we finalize the signal timing that we make sure we get the yellow interval right and the all red right.
Okay, thank you.
I also have a question for the engineering staff. So just looking at just the basic plan, it looks to me that all of the truck traffic will be required to take Hills Miller Road to enter the site to fuel. Is that correct?
They will be able to enter through the right in as well.
They will be able, because the entrance into the diesel pumps is on the south side of the island, correct?
Yes, yes.
So they would have to take the access
Circle.
road and turn around?
Yeah, they would have to circle around that island. That's the reason for the length of that
Okay.
island. Sorry about that. Pull that up closer. Yeah, that's the reason for the extended length of that island, so that they
Okay.
have the room to turn around and come back through.
Any other commission member comments? Questions? Okay, at this time, we'd bring the applicant forward, please. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Chris Warshaw. I'm with CESO. Address is 395 Springside Drive, Suite 202. That's in Akron, Ohio, 44333. To open up today and kind of expand upon what Mr. Eflin has already talked about, between myself and CESO as well as with Speedway, we have spent a fair amount of time on this project with city staff to come up with a plan that we feel is best exemplifies what this area of town needs to be. So some of the architecture that we've provided, that's stuff it's not stuff that we just came up with on our own. These are stuff that we've sat down with city staff to go over. The site layout is stuff that we've gone over and sat down and talked with the city staff to make sure that safety was a concern and that the layout was being done properly. Kind of going through, we kind of already discussed the site aerial, but again, just looking at it, it is at the intersection of Hills Miller Road and 23. It's currently an undeveloped site. It's about 12.9 acres. The site plan itself, just to kind of give a general overall layout of it, to kind of expand upon what Mr. Eflin was saying, the cars would be able to enter both through US 23 and through Hills Miller Road. The store itself would be a 4,600 square foot, or 4,608, I think is the actual square feet. Retail and convenience store, this type of items sold in there would be your typical gas station fare for a convenience store. It's not going to be a full-fledged grocery store or anything of that nature. It will just be a convenience store and to sell convenience items. There will be seven auto dispensers. That typically has, each dispenser has 2 hoses on it, one on the front side, one on the back side. So there will be a total for 14 automotive vehicles to fuel at one time. As far as the larger vehicular traffic, such as an RV or a tractor trailer, or even an oversized diesel car with a trailer on the back end, would be able to utilize the commercial lanes. They would enter in through the south, and then they would come up to, actually, it's kind of hard to see on this plan, but there's a bar placed there to stop them, so that it kind of just reminds them to stop and look both ways before they either turn left, circle back around and go towards Hills Miller to continue going north on 23, or they can make a right turn there and then go southbound on 23. This layout is kind of something that is pretty well thought of. If you were to flip this layout and have the trucks enter in through the north, it would actually kind of push all truck drivers to use Hills Miller. So by having it laid out like this actually will help manage some of that truck traffic going to Hills Miller, to help promote almost like a 50-50 split depending on how traffic is being generated into the store. There is ample amounts of parking spaces. There's about 34 auto stalls. Those are your typical 9-foot by 18 parking stall. Again, as Mr. Eflin pointed out, there is no space on the site for a large tractor trailer, an RV, to spend any considerable amount of time. There is a space for a truck once it's done fueling, to come up to that stop bar, run into the store, grab an item, and then head back out. But again, because he's parked right in front, or not parked, because he is temporarily held in that spot, there could be a truck behind him. He's not going to be sitting there for a long time. Again, there will be signs posted throughout the site restricting overnight parking, restricting long-term parking. It is part of this preliminary plan approval, and I'm sure that will carry through as part of the final approval if we are approved. So not only it was Speedway enforce it, but it is an enforceable item by the city. So if it were to be something that the city would need to take care of, the city does have the authority at that point to take care of that. The overall layout of the site, some of the questions that we've gotten already, there's about 2.81 acres. The total property is about 12.9 acres. 2.81 acres of that is going to be dedicated to green space. Pavements and buildings is just a hair over 3 acres. Undisturbed will be about 4.25 acres, is about over 4.25 acres, with 3 acres of that being dedicated as that nature easement, the conservation easement. I kind of have in there too, there's 2.74 acres of right-of-way and easements. This property line, it actually extends all the way to the center line of both Hills Miller Road and to US 23. So there's a lot of property in that 12.9 acres that's already accounted for as part of that roadway. And then of course there's, as Mr. Eflin spoke to, there's a water line easement that runs along Hills Miller Road and then kind of around Obie's property, and then up north along US 23. And again, that will remain as part of that easement. Again, looking at the canopy, the building and canopy elevations, just to kind of highlight some of the additional architectural upgrades as part of this. There'll be 4 dormers placed along the roof line. This will help break up that single roof. You'll have the canopy fascia itself. Usually that's just kind of an aluminum fascia that goes around it. This will actually be a stucco finish. So that'll be another architectural upgrade to help soften that look and kind of remove the metal and industrial feel of that canopy. Looking at the landscaping, we kind of already talked about this briefly. Again, Speedway will be paying to the city tree fund about $105,000. That's kind of what we're preliminarily expecting that number to be. There are a fair amount of trees throughout the site. Let's see if this thing works. Not on the TV. But there are plenty of trees intermixed throughout that green space that are existing trees that will remain existing trees. So that'll help kind of bridge the gap of new trees growing and existing trees that are already fully developed. Again, kind of talking about some of the traffic study recommendations. We'll be constructing a southbound right turn lane at US 23, right at the right in, right out. That'll again be that drop lane as was being discussed. We'll be widening US 23 northbound to accumulate 3 northbound lanes. That existing left turn lane is currently 10 feet wide. So that is something that is an existing condition that Speedway will be going ahead and correcting and widening that out to a 12-foot wide section, 3 lanes of 12 foot wide. We'll be restriping the northbound left turn lane on 23 from a two-way turn lane to a dedicated northbound turn lane. And then finally, we'll be constructing an eastbound left turn lane onto Hills Miller. That'll be taking kind of that current intersection, which just has a 2-lane road, and making it into a 3-lane road. So you'll have an ability to have a left turn lane and a right turn lane, which is why we're able to maintain that 28-second level of service. And again, all these improvements will be completed prior to the store being open. As part of Speedway, their sales policy on alcohol and tobacco, they do keep a strict policy regarding that that'll meet all local and state regulations. All new hires will be trained within 2 weeks of being hired on how to properly manage those sales. Anybody that appears to be under the age of 30 will be asked for an ID card no matter what. And again, Speedway is vitally concerned with the issues surrounding tobacco sales, and it makes sure, and tobacco and alcohol sales, and they make sure that their stores are fully up to code and all regulations. Some of the safety and security highlights, not only for this Speedway, but for a lot of for pretty much all the Speedways. Each store is fully videotaped, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. These cameras are not only around inside the store to watch the checkout counter, they're placed sporadically throughout the site to ensure that there's a proper, safe environment. These video cameras are monitored 24 hours a day in a central location, and those videos are kept on a 30 to 90-day basis. Some of the typical areas you'll see these video cameras is pointing towards those truck lanes, so that really anywhere where there's an ability for a truck to be in a static position, there would be a camera on it. There will be cameras placed at the entrance and to the exit of the site. So at the right in, right out, and then along Hills Miller, there'll be cameras placed there, and that'll and there'll also be cameras placed near the fueling tanks to make sure there's no tampering with that. Then again, there'll be cameras placed in the store and around the store to ensure site security. Another thing that I'd like to kind of point out is that while fully complying with the City of Delaware zoning code, the site will be pretty well lit to ensure that there are no dark spots that anything could happen. Speedway uses an LED light, which allows it to be cut off and shielded, so that the light spillover is minimal or close to none coming off the property, so that the areas that need to be lit on the Speedway property are well lit. However, the areas off the property are not impacted by that light. Kind of just expanding upon some of the safety measures within the fueling systems. These systems are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, to detect in case there's any kind of leak that happens within it. If there is a leak, an alarm would sound, and there's shut-off valves throughout the entire system that would allow Speedway to actively manage any type of issue to minimize any risk. That's all I had, so I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that either you guys have or any other questions that may come about.
Okay, thank you very much. Commission member questions?
I guess I have one. The 24-hour or no overnight parking, isn't that going to be difficult for your staff to handle that? I mean, you don't have that much staff on hand anyway, especially at nighttime. Okay, so they're actually going to go out and beat on the semi door or the camper and ask them to leave? Is that? I mean, I see the difficulty of that from a business, from a staffing point.
I'll speak to it a little bit, and I'll actually hand it off to Brian Witt here some as well. He's with Speedway, might be able to answer that a little bit better. There are no spaces on this site for a truck to park. If it does park, it could be an emergency issue. So it is necessary. It's not something that just needs to happen. It is necessary to ensure that there are no long-term trucks parking on this site. It could be a safety issue. So it's not just something that the Speedway staff or the Speedway in general just doesn't want to happen. The site is laid out to a point where a truck in a long-term parking situation would actually cause a safety issue on the site.
Okay.
If you want to make a comment, I need you to come up to the table and give your name and address for the record.
In case needed. Brian Witt with Speedway, 500 Speedway Drive, Enid, Ohio. And to that point,
Can you speak into the microphone?
sorry, I feel like I need to sit. Yeah, as far as the overnight parking, yes, the staff will go out or call local law enforcement if there is a problem. But as stated, the circulation of the layout of the site, there will be pinch points. You will lock up our entire system if that, and that will alert staff, if someone's parking overnight. Plus, those are going to be access and backage roads where they're going to actually act as streets around there that will obviously cause congestion if that comes out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a couple. Back to the easement, why would you just not extend the easement, the conservation easement, all the way to the west? Since there is some discrepancies on there or potential places where there could be a build out.
As we've gone through this process with city staff, that's kind of the area that we've identified preliminarily through this part of the stage to denote as conservation easement. As we work through this and going through the final development stages, we'll look and see if there's other areas on the site that make sense to encumber as a conservation easement. That would include maybe extending that along to the west side of the property line as part of some of the trees that are going to be undisturbed in that area. So as we look at that, we'll work with city staff and see what makes the most sense as far as expanding that easement.
And my next one would be on any type of noise mitigation. Are there noise mitigation panels that Speedway installs or anything that can protect the surrounding neighborhoods? You're going to have a lot of truck traffic apparently, and even if they're just trying to wait for another bay to open up, 10 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, they're going to generate quite a bit of noise.
The actual truck canopy itself is set far enough back from the property line that a lot of that will be mitigated just from distance. There will also be a lot of landscaping and trees placed in that area, which will again act as more of a natural buffer to not only visually screen, but the audio screen as well.
Any other questions?
I think this has been answered, but I just want to make sure that I understand it correctly because it's hard to look at the graphic and visualize. So the diesel bays, they'll enter from the south.
Correct.
And then they'll exit at the north.
Correct.
And then there's ample space to drive around to the front of the building and then back out towards the south onto Hills Miller. Is that correct?
So I'll kind of back up a little bit here to answer your question. There's two access points for all traffic. Either if you're moving southbound along 23, you have the ability to use the right in, right out access point. That right in, right out access point is designed, and we have ran simulations so that any truck or any vehicle coming along 23 has the ability to make that turn coming right in. A truck going southbound will continue on this movement, would then travel west along that kind of that east-westerly kind of access road. And there is ample space for them to make a left turn, go all the way around, and then make the 180-degree turn and come into that southern side of the canopy. These are simulations that we've run and tested to make sure there is the ample space to make that turn. a truck going southbound would then use the commercial lane, have the ability to pull forward, and then again have the ability to make a complete and total, or would have the ability to make a right turn at that point, and go back down and use that right out back on this 23. A truck that is going northbound would make the left turn going onto Hills Miller Road from 23, would make a right turn into the site, and then has the ability to just pull more or less straight forward into that canopy. And then again, we've ran simulations and tested it that a truck would have the ability, even from the most inner commercial lane, to make a full 180-degree turn and then head back out towards Hills Miller.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other commission questions?
I just have a curious kind of question. What are you thinking in terms of percentages of catchment you're going to get from? Is most of your customer base going to be going southbound? Are you not anticipating a lot of northbound?
The actual counts on 23 are pretty much the same northbound and southbound. So we're expecting that there to be a similar type of traffic numbers going either northbound or southbound coming into the site.
Any other questions? Mr. Lemke?
I know from, I think out west of Columbus, you guys have a little bit of a similar design, I think, where there's a gasoline and then also diesel bays. Can you just talk about, I guess, how that site has worked out and if it's a similar amount of diesel bays, and I guess how kind of that stacking, or because I hear with the 3 bays, you have trucks pull in, if there is room for them to kind of pull up and stop. I'm just trying to understand how that stacking maybe works in other locations, and if that has become a bottleneck, or what type of mitigation there can be there.
Well, I guess, so normally as they're going left to right through the fuel bay, they'll be able to come up and stop and park, and that's expected that they're able to run in and grab some convenience item and leave. Obviously, that cannot be a long-term parking spot because someone else is going to be behind them. And I would assume they would talk to one another if they're blocking them from being able to exit. So there is a little bit of stacking capacity in either direction, so that there's enough pavement, enough distance that no one is going to necessarily be backed out onto Hills Miller or 23. There's ample space, and we do not expect that many trucks to be there at any one time if that would ever become a problem.
Okay.
Any further questions from the commission? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just want to double check to make sure that everyone that intends to speak this evening has put their name on one of our speaker sign-up forms so that I know to be able to call you. Could I have a staff member just go check the table to make sure that someone else hasn't filled out a form? I do know that there have been some citizens that have requested to speak. So I will remind them we're going to stick to a 3 to 5 minute time limit, try not to be repetitive. And we will start with Robert Bomer. Robert, if you would please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. And we will let you know if you run out of time.
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bob Bomer, Robert Bomer. My work address is 302 North Defiance Street, Archbold, Ohio, 43502. I am an attorney. I represent a number of the people back here who are obviously in opposition to a portion of this plan. And I also grew up in Delaware. So I'm here for 2 basic purposes. Number 1 is to lay a foundation, what you're going to hear from some of the citizens tonight. Some of the things that they've heard today, I mean, they laughed a few minutes ago because they heard that, there's not a problem with the Hills Miller intersection at US 23. Anybody that spends any time there knows that that's not quite correct. I'm not challenging the experts. I'm not challenging their credentials or what they have to say. What I'm saying is that is a miserable intersection already, and widening them a few feet isn't going to fix all the problems. Now, we talk about, I mean, one of the things that the Speedway representative just said a moment ago is that, oh, we don't anticipate that much truck traffic. If you're coming northbound on 23 and you want to take a left turn onto Hills Miller Road and you have 3 or 4 trucks lined up waiting, you have 2 lights at a very close proximity. I challenge you to say that they're going to fit into that space, especially with a school bus or a couple of cars. It already backs up today. So you're going to hear things about that. You're going to hear things about quality of life. Noise, trucks exiting onto Hills Miller Road. You have apartments right across the street. You have houses just down the street. Semis, some of these guys like to take the mufflers off and they call it straight stacks. And guess what? They're noisy. 2 in the morning. It's going to interfere with the people that live there. What can Speedway do about that? Probably not a lot. The opposition today that you're going to hear from the citizens has less to do with Speedway. People aren't opposed to Speedway. People aren't opposed to a gas station or a convenience store. It's those truck bays and the noise and the problems those things bring. This commission and city council ultimately have the opportunity to try to get this right. Well-intentioned decisions that turn out to be bad decisions have consequences down the line. And one of the, I mean, you can look at something that would have nothing to do with this body. We have a railroad overpass on Central Avenue that rips the top off of trucks now and again. The can opener. I have a friend from high school that still sends me a text message with the can opener, got another one. Good decision in the person's mind who made it. If the things you're going to hear about tonight come true, and there are problems created by Speedway, even though the intention of this body, if it approves it, and city council, if it approves it, are well-intentioned, the people around Hills Miller on a dangerous stretch of road on US 23 will have to live with those consequences for a long time. So I would urge this body to listen carefully to what the people have to say. They have good things to say. Some of the things will challenge some of the numbers that we've heard. And I think that it would be a really good thing to put this thing back in and let's get these diesel pumps out of there. Thank you.
Excuse me. Would you please restate your address just a little slower?
Would you like me to give you a card?
That would be fine. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, and moving on, we will now hear from Jack McGrail, please.
I was requested to give 10 copies. And
Name and address
like
for the
those?
record first, please.
Oh, sorry. My name is John McGrail, Jack McGrail, MD, 268 Sylvan Drive, Delaware, Ohio. Yeah. 43015. So I have a prepared statement and a few questions. I want to make sure everyone can hear me. I'm addressing the Comprehensive Plan 2003-2008. And the plan states that future city growth will advance north to Coover Road and east and west from there. The plan calls for structure and balance and a planned development, including attention to city presentation, gateway, hopefully, and needs and traffic patterns, plus schools and parks. Artistic renderings of the various gateways adorn city chambers. The Speedway proposed auto and truck refueling center will display prominently along this corridor. The CESO traffic study appears to underestimate the traffic counts, and added growth will result in worsening this dangerous corridor, particularly as semis have access to Hills Miller Road. ODOT states in its AADT 2012, that's annual average daily traffic, 2012 report that counts in this area were 27,530. That was measured at Panhandle Road. And CESO June 3rd, 2014 count was 17,466, average to 17,000 vehicles. Matt Weber just said something about 35,000 vehicles, so I wanted to make sure I heard him correctly. Matt, did you say 35,000 vehicles crossing that
Dr.
intersection?
McGrail, we're going to take all questions, and then, like I said,
Okay,
we're
sorry.
going to, so would you repeat the question? We'll make sure that we
Okay, the question
note it.
is, what is the actual count of traffic to be considered by the Planning Commission across this intersection? There's a ODOT is 27,530. CESO says 17,466, and I thought I heard Matt Weber say 35,000.
Okay, we'll come
Okay.
back to that.
If it is 35,000, that's half of 71 and 36 intersection. That needs serious consideration by the Planning Commission. Some of this will be discussed as a separate topic as requested by Mr. Eflin, excuse me. Since 2000, the Delaware County population is up 44%, about 3% growth. From 2013 to 2014, Delaware County growth was 2.3%. According to the U.S. Census, the Delaware City website, Quick Facts, says city population growth at 3.47%. It would be reasonable to say that growth is significant in the city and the county. This growth will task resources and traffic will increase significantly. The proposed speedway truck refueling will obstruct a major artery, making it a more dangerous and congested intersection. A well-appointed gas station is acceptable, and truck refueling needs to be moved from this residential area. I would just say that this is, to me, an example of a gorilla trying to put a square peg in a round hole, because it's just not going to work for this intersection. Noise remains an issue, which we've discussed. The current turning lane is 245 feet, is not allowing for the 50-foot deceleration, and ODOT says it needs to be 343 feet. I would ask the Planning Commission and the staff to describe this site as it is not a gas station, but a truck refueling or an auto and truck refueling center. Gas station is misleading. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person who has requested to speak is Jean Frensos. Hello. Name and address for the record, please.
Jeannie Frensos, 333 Clear Run Road, Delaware, Ohio, 43015. So I and a small other number of people live on Clear Run Road. So we've been talking a lot about Hills Miller. I want to move your attention slightly north. We are very much in love with the area that we live in. We love Delaware, but we have some concerns, many of which are being voiced here this evening. But I'd like to add a couple new ones that have not been voiced to date. First is the turn lane that is being proposed, and I'm not sure exactly how that's going to impact Clear Run Road with it being moved with the right turn, left turn. We currently, when we are going northbound, have to turn left onto Clear Run Road. Likewise, we're going to be messing with a lot of truck traffic. We already do, and we're expecting that to get worse. So we would respectfully ask that that be closely looked at for safety reasons for those of us that live on Clear Run Road. The second concern is related to drainage. I have some pictures that I've asked Ms. Keller if I can share with you. Possibly you guys can pass around as I'm speaking.
Sure.
We are called Clear Run Road for a reason. If any of you have our history buffs, you'll know that Crystal Springs Farm was originally on this area, so we are naturally spring-fed area, and Clear Run Creek is spring-fed. So we have wetlands, we have lots of nature in our area, we have wildlife, and it is a very pristine area. The topography is also different in this area. If you look behind Speedway, so we're actually living behind the Speedway property that we're talking about is where our family resides. It is very hilly. The topography is much different than you usually would see in Delaware. As a result of that, this natural creek runs beautifully the majority of the year, but it also flash floods, as you'll see from the pictures that are located here, which are quite severe during times of high rain. This creek, the reason why it's of interest, hopefully, to the Planning Committee is that it runs on through this property and it's directly north of where Speedway is proposing to build this area. I see that there is a pond there. That's great. It will probably catch a lot of the runoff from all of the black-topped areas, but at some point or another that will fill up. It will overflow into an already flooded environment that we're facing. So we are upstream, and we will be impacted by what happens with Speedway and their runoff. And because we are nature-loving individuals, we're also very concerned what's going to happen downstream. So again, broaden this view a little bit. That creek continues to run on down and empties into the Olentangy River, which, as you guys know, is a water source for drinking water for many people in the southern part of Delaware County. So I appreciate the attention that's been given to this project so far. I'd ask for you guys to carefully consider these other two areas, drainage and then traffic concerns for Clear Run Road. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan McGrail is next on the list. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. I also have 10 copies of what I'm about to say. My name is Susan McGrail. I reside at 268 Sylvan Drive, Delaware, Ohio, 43015. I also have a property at 151 Pennock Avenue here in Delaware, 43015. I have the privilege to speak on behalf of the daycare, the seniors, and the schools. I'm a licensed social worker in the state of Ohio. This intersection is a major daily route for Delaware City and Buckeye Valley school buses. Grace Brethren Daycare and Preschool, about 150 children in and out all day starting at 6:30 a.m. The NATA buses transport 24 trips a day, carrying seniors and the disabled to the various locations throughout the city. That entrance there on Bruce Road has a disability apartments. And then at the very back, it dead ends into the Lutheran home. The intersection is a major route for students, parents, teachers, and school personnel, which is our second largest employer in Delaware. They currently are in jeopardy because of the danger and the snarl coming from the truck congestion on the Hills Miller and US Route 23 as is. The CESO Speedway traffic study was completed June 3rd, 2014 for the peak traffic and June 17th, 2014 for the 24-hour count. Delaware and Buckeye Valley schools' last day of school were May 28th and May 29th. The traffic count did not include the school buses, the students, the parent transports, the teachers, the personnel, the driver's ed, and the students traveling to JVS South Campus, and they're going to close the North Campus on 521, so they're all going to be going on 23, or both. CESO numbers need to be recalculated to include omitted traffic, and the truck refueling needs to be abandoned. The average daily traffic, AADT, as calculated on June 3rd in 2014 by CESO was 17,466. ODOT's calculation of the AADT in 2012 was 27,530 for the same area. The CESO numbers again don't match. It's the same conclusion. Councilman Chris Jones, Ward 1, was quoted August 15, 2015 by the Delaware Gazette referring to Hills Miller at Bruce Road intersection. It's very dangerous. The congestion is really bad. Note this is adjacent to the proposed development exit on Hills Miller. And in the same article, Jones stated that emergency equipment cannot get into the area. Also, Fire Chief John Donahue referred to the area as a hot spot, and Police Chief Bruce Pijanowski called the area and traffic situation a bottleneck and an accident waiting to happen. This development also needs a sidewalk. There are tons of kids in that development, both in the Sylvan area, Oakhurst area, Bruce Road. They cut through to go to Odd Lots, they go to Sunoco. When they find out Speedway's got slushies, they're going. So you need to have a sidewalk there. Right now, they're walking up and down that Hills Miller area, and you almost hit them half the time because those apartments are literally 12 or 15 feet right off the road. There has to be sidewalks to keep these kids safe. So why would the Planning Commission hold back on denying semi-truck access to this hotspot? The city and Speedway and CESO are warned that this is an area that's very dangerous. It's an accident waiting to happen. It's a bottleneck. The state of Ohio ranks this number 43 on its most congested highway segment in the whole state. That was on 7/13/2015. We are not opposed to a gas station, as Mr. Eflin calls it. We're opposed to a truck refueling station and stacking of the trucks and 24-hour noise from the trucks. And it has to have a sidewalk. It just cannot have a sidewalk. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next is Ted Heiskell. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly.
Correct. Very good. Most people call it high school or something.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Ted Heiskell. I live at 229 Sylvan Drive. My concern has been the speed on US 23 as I sit there waiting to make a left turn on Hills Miller. Of course, that lane, as you know now, is only 10 feet wide. And the speed of the trucks and the cars that come south, I think they're trying to beat the lights or something, but it's quite very, very high speed. So I went to the state highway patrol down here and asked them about the speed of that area. I was told that the area between Marion and Interstate 270 that had the highest number of speeding tickets was between Waldo and Hills Miller Road. Now, I think that if we have trucks, even though, as I understand, the stacking lane would be changed to 12 feet, still, as we have trucks turning and particularly coming in south as well as those that are traveling north, going to have some real dangerous situations. I see that, well, Mike, I have a question I'd like to ask the people here. Have any of you actually turned left from 23 to Hills Miller? Have all of you done that?
We'll note your question, and then we'll come back
Yes.
to it at the
I'd
end.
like to know the answer. Have you all actually turned left from 23 to Hills Miller, particularly at maybe a heavier traffic time? But again, my concern is the speed coming down. I think the turning south is going to be a problem. I noted that on the Cotswold Road south of town, there is a light that flashes, that's warning people that there's a traffic light that's about to change. There's none here. And I certainly hope that that will be taken care of. I guess the final thing that you're hearing in summary for all of us is we have nothing against Speedway. The convenience store is fine. The employees that they would hire is good for the community. But we just don't think it should have a truck refueling station. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Bill Bomer next.
Good evening. Unless I miss my guess, the good news I have for you is I'm it. My guess is that every time a piece of property,
I'm sorry, sir. We need your name and
Oh.
address for the record, please.
Bill Bomer, 269 Sylvan Drive, Delaware.
Thank you.
You know the zip. Every time, my guess, Mr. Eflin, every time a piece of land changes use in a radical way, you're going to get some kind of griping from somebody. Just the way it is. The Planning Commission sees it all the time. And part of your job, sir, I am sure, is to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. What's realistic? What's emotion? What plays, what doesn't? I'm sure that's a big part of your job, sir. I think that the applicant's done a pretty good job since the time we met them this spring. I really do. They're just not all the way there. But I do believe in my heart of hearts that the Planning and Community Development Department of the City of Delaware is fully sold. Nothing wrong with that. My guess is that nobody in that department gets rewarded for what you turn down. But I go to your website, Mr. Eflin, and I quote, "The Planning and Community Development Department enhances the quality of life and manages growth through the administration and implementation of the comprehensive plan, advances the quality of life, and through continuous application of planning techniques to shape the development of residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional areas and related infrastructure, including the road network." Continuing, the department also protects and enhances the public health, safety, general welfare, including property values, through the administration of zoning, subdivision, building codes, while responding to unique physical, economic, and social challenges that require planning expertise. Well said, I think. I think in this particular situation, ladies and gentlemen, that the pendulum on this project has swung so far to the approval side. I ask you, sir, to bring back to the middle just a little bit. And you don't have a bunch of Looney Tunes back here. This isn't just Sylvan Drive. You've got Troy Township back here. You've got people from other quadrants of Delaware who are people from Bruce Road who are very much interested in what happens here. And like so many have said, we'll help cut the ribbon for these fine folks if they put a convenience store and a gas station there. We'll help cut the ribbon. So now that said, what can you do about it? I ran across an article from the Frederick, Maryland the newspaper dated June 12th, 2014. And I've got a link to that site for anybody back here, and so does Jack McGrail. And it is so similar to this, and I've even got a Google map on there to show you how similar this is to what we're talking about here. And I will not read this whole thing. I will paraphrase it. Concerns that a proposed gas station would act as a miniature truck stop led county officials Wednesday to remove fuel pumps for tractor trailers from the project plans. The Frederick, Maryland is to Baltimore what Delaware is to Columbus, okay? About 65,000, a little bit bigger than we are. The Frederick County Planning Commission agreed on several measures to prevent truck drivers from overnighting, which I think has been addressed, as the planned Mountaindale convenience store. Their decision came after several neighbors of the proposed fueling station raised objections about potential noise, light pollution, groundwater contamination, and road safety.
Sir, just so you know, you have a 1-minute warning, okay?
All right. However, after modifying the business proposal, the commission approved plans to build the station near US 15 in Auburn Road. So they approved it with one more exception, removing the fuel pumps. By the end of the discussion, the Planning Commission members remained unconvinced that truck traffic was appropriate for this site. The Planning Commission voted 5-2 to remove the 4 tractor trailer pumps from the project plans and prohibit overnight parking at the station. Mitchell also had to put a gate off the property to keep people out after hours. Commissioner Robert Lawrence said he could envision trucks idling in the lot for hours, sending exhaust into the air, increasing traffic onto US 15, very similar to what we have on US 23. So what that Planning Commission did, ladies and gentlemen, was say to the developer, you've done a nice job. I asked you to treat your residents with as much respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, I ask you to refrain from doing that. If you'd like to display your approval of what someone is saying, I ask you to just raise your hand so that we don't have the auditory distraction so that we can move on with the agenda. Okay, we have some other members of the public that would like to speak. Richard Lehner, if you would come to the podium, please. Name and address for the record, please.
Richard Lehner, 2369 Troy Road, Delaware, Ohio. I guess I'm the only one here that's for this. I'm a truck driver. I own several semis. And what people are missing is that by installing this and with a fuel station there for the trucks, it's going to make the area safer. I don't know how many times I've been going down 23 and had to wait on a northbound truck coming out of McDonald's. Now, I'm a truck driver. I have several employees that are truck drivers. We need to eat. We need to have a restroom break. There is no safe place between Columbus and Upper Sandusky to do that. The proposal here is a good proposal. That was going to be a truck stop back in the 60s. So, and then with the improvements, and I do a lot of work or pull in and get fuel at speedways, and I haven't met a speedway yet that didn't do good to the community. And I just want you to consider all these people back here. And I am a resident, and most of them are living on ground I used to own. And I live right around the corner, and I use Hills Miller Road with my semis, and I drive up and down it 3 or 4 times a day. I don't see any more problem than I saw in 1970. There are a few more cars, but not that much more. So I just want you to consider that this truck stop is needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Zarens.
Andy Zarnes, I live at 5565 Marysville Road, Ostrander, Ohio, 43061. I only got a chance to kind of glance through the, I think it was called a traffic engineering study, and I would say it was in very poor quality. One thing is it did not provide photograph for the driver's eye height up and down the road. Like I would say for this situation, you should have photographs every 200 feet, 1,600 feet each side of Hills Miller, and 1,000 feet, same thing for Hills Miller. As far as like the lane widths on US 23, the 5 11-foot lanes, you can blame me. That was one of the first traffic safety engineering studies I did for ODOT about 40 years ago.
Sir, would you mind telling us your qualifications?
My qualifications? I'm a professional engineer, professional surveyor.
Okay, thank you.
I worked for as a traffic engineer for ODOT for about 20 years. I've been out of the field for several years, so I'm not really up on some things and so forth. One thing that's common about the intersection is going to have a level of service C for 2035. I'm pretty much a total disbeliever in that. I mean, I'd have to see, you know, facts and figures and so forth. Now, as far as some examples about like capacity, traffic capacity analysis, I personally don't like Synchro. Every time I've encountered it, there's been problems. You get false conclusions. So I would always, you know, recommend Transit 7. But even with, let's say, Transit 7, people either they make mistakes or they just do it on purpose. Like one example I would have is for the SPUE, the suburban single point urban intersection there at 23 and Sawmill Road. I happened to run across the traffic engineering study about 2 years after the construction was completed. And I think the level of service they came up with was B, but the problem was where they entered the data, there's a couple of major traffic movements. They only used about 10% of the volume. So obviously it came out like a B and it's probably an F when it opened. So all this analysis business has to be looked at very carefully. I mean, and you'd be surprised how people don't know how to use these things. I had a whole bunch of comments kind of scribbled down, but I don't know if I can try to make some sense of them for you. One thing I would like to comment on is this 5-lane section business. you have to be kind of very careful when you put in a left turn lane only. Like, I think at the signal there at McDonald's, there's like 3 or 4 houses on the east side of the highway. And I don't know how they're actually supposed to make a left-hand turn in their driveway. Probably you'd be in violation if you stopped to make a left-hand turn into a left turn lane going the opposite direction. So I think that's something that has to be looked at very carefully. Then as far as this whole project that's being developed here, again, I find fault with it in a major way. The thing you should do first is do a traffic engineering study and forget about all the other little details. Come up with your geometry. You know what I'm saying? Is in other words, don't worry about this is going to be a wetland, or this is going to be so, you know, this and that and everything else. Come up with your geometry. Now, what I would kind of suggest for geometry, it's somewhat different than what you have, and I think ODOT actually made some comment. They didn't want left turns.
You've got about a minute left.
Okay, they didn't want comments, left turns from 23 going into Speedway. Now, I think the thing you really have to think about is to have a good level of service for a long period of time. At the signal, you want to reduce as many of the left turns as you can so that you preserve more green time for the main traffic flow, which is the 23 through traffic. So I would suggest something different as far as, you know, at least for consideration. I would suggest that you have a right turn lane in for southbound 23, I'd say roughly about 200 feet north of Hills Miller. That way you've got good deceleration using the berm. I would also suggest for as much traffic you're going to have turning in and out, that you go above a standard for a right turn lane. I would suggest in this case you consider going to a 16-foot wide lane, so that you're going to have trucks going in and out, cars going in and out, so you've got more room to maneuver and avoid accidents.
Sir, you can, that means time's up, so.
Am I done?
Yeah, you're done.
Okay, well, I had some other comments I wanted to make for you. I thought you wanted to hear those about, you know, how I would do the, you know, the geometry stuff.
Well, we need to maintain the 5-minute
Okay.
time limit. Thank
All
you.
right. Okay,
Appreciate your time tonight.
all right.
Next, we have Bruce Gill.
Bruce Gill, 261 Kensington Drive, Delaware, Ohio. I really only have a couple things I'd like to throw out for you, the commission, to keep in your mind. Number one, we are well aware that this is zone commercial on the Rose Speedway project. Do you realize that just adjacent to that is the lowest zoning density you have in the city, ER1 and ER2? Yes, Oakhurst. Anyway, there's that one. Now, let's take into this other consideration. The gentleman over there hit it on the nail, and I said it a long time ago. Subway will provide some way, somehow, for trucks to lay over. Now, maybe they won't right now, but adjacent to that property is 2 other sites. One is already a terrible congestion, just ask the police chief, and that is McDonald's. They have no lights, they have nothing, and it causes everything. But then think of where the other one is. That corner, unoccupied, gravelled. It's not in the city, we can't do anything about it. Semis can park there all the time. And guess what? What a mess that'll be at Hills Miller and 23. So just keep these things in mind, please. I don't think this project is set to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Jonathan Sepelek. Apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Hi, Jonathan Seplak, 246 Tudor Drive, Delaware, Ohio. A couple things I want to touch base on real quick. As it was stated earlier, Hills Miller, they're talking left turn into the Speedway assembly. What happens when you have a southbound truck coming in at the same time? They're saying that there's enough room to turn around and allow a truck to come in. There would automatically be a bottleneck. When they took that into consideration, did they have the tandems all the way in the front or all the way in the back of the trailer, which would add turning radius? The concept drawings can be changed after they've been addressed. And on this drawing where you have here on page 5 of their representation, what do they call it? The back road. It actually traverses across their proposed conservation area. Let's see. Running out of stuff. So what happens when they, any trucks that are turning left and heading west on Hills Miller and see that there's a bottleneck already on the property, where do the drivers go?
Can we make note of that question? Then we'll come back.
Okay, and then once again,
Just let him get that question first,
Okay.
if you don't mind. So you're asking what happens when the trucks want to make a left turn?
heading west,
Heading
and they've
west.
already seen that there's already a bottleneck in the parking area. Where do they go? Where do they turn? The next location that they can turn is going to be down at Troy and Hills Miller, and they can either go across the tracks and then try and make a left turn down that side road that crisscrosses right parallel with the railroad tracks, which is going to be a problem, especially if they get stuck on the tracks. And again, that intersection there, just on a normal truck and trailer, you cannot make that corner very well legally, without doing an illegal turn, of course. And once again, we go back to the Hills Miller, the Hills Miller and the Oakhurst with Bruce residents. If there were an issue at this intersection, how do we get out? And they're proposing this back road. I don't know where it intersects, but what is it, the Clearwater or Clear Creek Road? Is that going to be added on before, after their proposal?
Is that a question you want us to
Yes.
answer? Okay.
Can you repeat it, please?
With the proposed back road that they've shown indicated as where the fueling stations are, does that go all the way over to Clear Creek? Is that the name of the road? Clear Run, thanks. And again, it was issued or stated about the access for the buses and all that. Again, the 28 second is funny. And also on the proposal, they show all the fueling stations up front to be gas. Every speedway I've been to, you've got gas and diesel up in the front. So therefore, it's a potential another issue with flow. How do they plan to address that? That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you so much. I believe we have one more, Mary Jo Blickendorfer.
Mary Jo Blickensturfer, 205 Sylvan Drive, Delaware, Ohio.
I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
No problem. Mr. Eflin, my first question is, where is the gateway to the north part of Delaware?
Ma'am, we'll take your question and then we're going to come back.
Okay, next question. Could I have the gentleman, we weren't permitted to ask questions to the CEO here. Could he?
You ask questions to the commission, and then if the commission desires, we ask the questions to the
Okay,
staff and
my
to the
question
applicant.
is concerning a picture that he had on the slide, and I wanted to use it as a reference.
Okay.
Could he pop that slide up?
No, we'll just take your question and then we'll come back to it. If we need to bring that slide back up at that time, we will.
When you're in private meeting, not with us?
No, this is all going to take place out. in the
Okay,
open.
good. I would like to show something on that slide. My third question, and it just, if any of you know, is there something Speedway can put in to have the trucks obey traffic laws? When I leave my neighborhood and go out Hills Miller, I was there at 6:15 this Sunday morning. We were backed up 5 cars. The reason we're backed up 5 cars is all the trucks in the McDonald's lot decided that it was time to leave. And they don't care what the light was. If the light is red, they pull out. If the light is green, they pull out. I was about to make my turn. I'm coming along. I would have the right of way. It pulled right out in front of me. So now when they're back here on Hills Miller and we're coming out of our development and they decide to leave Speedway, is there some kind of bump in the road or something they can put in there so that they don't pull out in front of us? And the problem was at 6:15 Sunday morning, should be a slow time, if I was backed up to where I was, which was approximately their driveway, they couldn't get out because the trucks on McDonald's were all pulling out. And so what are we going to do with that? And am I to understand that when the trucks leave this lot, they not only have to go out to 23, but they also can go west on Hills Miller?
Is that a question you'd like answered?
Yes.
Okay.
The reason I wanted the slide is I was up there very, very briefly, but I'd like to see just where that driveway comes out. And I'd like the commission members to take a good look at
Where
that.
what driveway comes out?
The driveway from Speedway to Hills Miller.
I think we have numerous, I mean, there's a.
No, there was one that had an actual aerial view. It showed all the buildings that exist there now.
Do we have access to that slide?
It was just here. This gentleman showed it in his
Okay,
presentation.
I'm trying to see if we have access
It
to
was
the
the
slide
second
here.
one that there we go. Yes. Could I point something out on that?
Sure.
Here's the Speedway property, and here, this is Spruce Road, and these are.
The only problem is when you can point, but you need to come back to the mic to speak because no one can hear you. We have members of the public watching from home, so we need to speak into the microphones.
I wasn't sure of the property delineations, and now that I can see that, if you see the long red line on the west side of their property and where this last apartment building is going to the far east, I've been on that road. The wall of that apartment is right there, and that exit of that Hills Miller will be that wall there. I want all of you to think what it'll be like. And thanks, Mr. Bomer, for reading your job, and that's the quality of life. Think about that person sleeping in their bed right behind that big screen you have there, and a semi after semi after semi putting their brakes on and grumbling their engines out onto Hills Miller. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, I don't have anyone else that signed up to speak. So at this point, I think we need to tackle some questions that we may have out there, direct them to the appropriate staff members.
Yeah.
Sure, we need a 5-minute break. So we will take that 5-minute break. We will assemble your questions. We'll come back and hopefully get that taken care of. During the break, I received a text message from Councilman Chris Jones regarding some of the comments that were made during Susan McGrail's statement. I'll just reread that portion of it real quickly. It was stated, Councilman Chris Jones, Ward 1, was quoted in August 15th, 2015 by the Delaware Gazette referencing Hills Miller at the Bruce Road intersection. And it goes on to say, it's very dangerous. The congestion is really bad. Chris Jones would like to clarify that quote. He sent me the newspaper article. His exact words were, the thing about Bruce Road that drives me crazy is people are allowed to park on both sides and you can't get emergency equipment down there. They are locked in. Chris Jones said he will post a copy of the Gazette article that Ms. McGrail quotes, as well as the recording of the meeting on city Facebook, his own Facebook, and so people can read and hear for themselves that he never mentioned the Hills Miller and 23 intersection. He says the topic was Bruce Road and the parking on both sides of the street, and he feels that to quote him otherwise is misleading residents. So I told him that I would read that, and I've read that into the record. Now we will tackle some questions that came up during the public comment portion. I'm going to read some of them out, and then we will turn them over to the appropriate staff. We were asked a question if we've all turned left onto Hills Miller. So if I could ask the commission to just raise your hand if you have ever turned left onto Hills Miller. Okay, where do drivers go when they turn left on Hills Miller and they see there is a bottleneck on the Speedway property? Could we have a staff member answer that, if possible?
My opinion is that's a hypothetical situation that is very unlikely to occur, but I'm going to also defer to CISO to address that comment.
The site has been configured to allow for bypass lanes. So if a truck were to come into the site and realize that it is bottlenecked at the canopy and are looking to get around, there are ways to get around the canopy. On the eastern side of the actual truck canopy, you see there's a gap that's about a 20-foot gap between the building sidewalk and the commercial fueling lane itself that will allow a truck to bypass that way. There's also the backage road, which will allow a truck to bypass. So there are internal mechanisms to the site to allow bypassing of a truck.
Okay, thank you. With the proposed backage road, when does it connect to Clear Run?
We have no timeline for the connection. What we've ensured with this development is that this development doesn't preclude the connection from ever happening.
Exactly.
Okay, how do you address flow if diesel is available at the front bays?
The diesel in the front bays are strictly for your commercial, or not commercial, your standard domestic vehicle, such as like a Volkswagen Jetta that has diesel, or a Chevy Silverado that runs on flex fuel. So that is all that is really that being meant for. You can see there's really not any space for any commercial vehicle to utilize that.
Even small trucks?
Define a small truck. You mean like a box truck?
Yeah, box truck.
It has the ability. It'd be tight in that area. They would probably be at that point just better off just using the commercial lanes that are there for them.
Okay, there was a question about where exactly is the gateway to the north side. I know Mr. Eflin can answer that.
Yeah, as defined in the comp plan and the gateway and corridor plan, there are various gateways identified at Coover Road, the Fairgrounds, and Pennsylvania Avenue. And that's not to say that, as part of my point in discussing the design and the landscaping and the monolith and piers, was that we are treating this site essentially as a gateway site as well, regardless of what's in those plans.
Okay, this question is for Speedway. Can Speedway help enforce the laws? I think it was in reference to what the truckers' behavior pulling in and out of the site. I think we all kind of know Speedway really can't do anything to enforce the laws. That would be up to our police department.
Yes, I would have to refer to your local law enforcement.
Okay.
Take care of that.
Can trucks go west on Hills Miller?
Yes, they could, if they so needed to go that way.
Okay. They could go west today as the intersection stands?
Based on what we heard in this Geller tonight, there is one truck driver here that does go west on Hills Miller.
Okay,
So yes.
okay. Then there was, oh, okay, yes. There was a question about drainage, the Clear Run Creek. This would probably be best for engineering, I'm guessing, about the retention pond and what the downstream impact of this site would be on that. On the pictures that we saw, which I'm sure were from that time of extreme heavy rain that we had this spring, I'm guessing. But what would happen if some heavy rains and springs, what would happen if that happened again?
First of all, I apologize for throwing out real technical terms like level of service. I'm not going to go into real technical hydrology in this meeting. They have to meet city code. City code is very stringent when it comes to stormwater detention. CISO may be able to elaborate on what critical year storm is and those sorts of things if you're really interested. But they are held to the same standards that every other development is in the city of Delaware. They have to release equal to or less amounts of water for any given storm up to the critical year storm. And that's what's going to be enforced on this site. Will there be more volume? Yes, there will be more volume. Will the discharge rate at which the site discharges water be equal to or less than existing conditions? Yes.
Okay.
So it'll be limited rate, more volume, but over a longer period of time
Okay.
using detention basins.
If you have any follow-up questions, I'm sure that Mr. Weber would be happy to speak with you, more specifics. There was another question I got during the break about containment and vapor leakage. That would probably be Speedway. I don't really quite understand the question, but if there was a fuel leak or a vapor leakage, what safeguards would be taken by Speedway?
Yeah, as far as the tanks, we do follow all state and federal regulations regarding our tanks. So they are double fiberglass walled, so that there is a chance to, identify a leak, whether something's coming in or going out. There's two walls. All that is registered at our headquarters, and there are daily readouts regarding tank volume amounts, and those are all looked at and tabulated and reported to the state as needed, as required.
That seems to wrap up the questions. There was one more, okay.
Colleen pointed out to me, it was just around the varying numbers from the traffic studies.
Oh, okay, you're correct. All right, so there was a question at the beginning, the actual count of traffic across the intersection. There was a request for clarity of the 17,000 versus the 35,000.
I can take that.
Okay.
The executive summary has a typo in it. It's far less important than the actual model, which the study is based on. The model input is 35,000. This should have said 17,000 bidirectional per day, and that's exactly what the counts were. Not exactly, but they were 17,000 plus or minus in each direction. In traffic engineering terminology, we often refer to or describe the number of vehicles on a highway, such as US 23, as so many number of vehicles in each direction. So it's a typo. I apologize for not catching that. We'll have it revised and memorialized in our file copy.
Okay.
It doesn't affect the analysis. The analysis has the right volumes, which is 35,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Chairman, there was part of that question.
Okay, sure. Just for a very brief moment.
Al McGrail again, 268 Sylvan. The question said that ODOT says there's 27,530 at the Panhandle Road. That's bidirectional. And CESO says that there's 17,000. So that's the question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anything you want to add?
As I've stated before, the model is 35,000 in 2000 opening day, which is 2015. Those counts that you referenced, Mr. McGrail, are 2012 either accounts or model information. Morpses, I'm getting the privilege of getting text information texted to me as well. Shout out to everybody. Thank you on YouTube for that. That the Morpse website shows the 2014 count as 32,084. So quick math in my head, if it's 32,000 in 2014, 35,000 in 2015 is a very solid assumption, probably a little bit on the conservative side, which as I begin my discussion earlier tonight, that we used a lot of conservative parameters in the study.
Okay, thank you.
The one last, I think just from our cross-referencing, there was a question around if there's an accident, where do drivers from Bruce Road and Oakhurst Drive also go?
Okay,
But I don't, again, out of context,
if there was an accident, where would drivers on Bruce Road and Hills, or in where? In Oakhurst? So I guess we would need to know specifically where the accident is, but I'm assuming it would be right in front of the access road there to Speedway on Hills Miller.
I'll certainly let the chief take part of this question if he'd like to tonight, but I would also say that these plans, excuse me, have been reviewed by the fire department and the police chief, as well as the public works and utilities department, and accounted for answers such as this, that they can certainly access the parts of the community the same as they can today. Bruce, do you have?
Right, assuming the
additional
crash
information?
is at the entrance there of Speedway, you really have no difference than the crash that occurs there now. If there's a crash that obstructs Bruce Road, we have to get people out now from the backside of Bruce Road. You know, if we had to evacuate people, I think at the public meeting last year, the fire department said they'd get their vehicles and run through the fields if they had to, but we'd evacuate that way like we would today. And actually that is a development piece that we look at now when we look at these plans, and we don't really like having only one way in and out. We actually, police and fire both kind of insist on having at least emergency access at one or at more than one point for this very reason.
Thank you. That concludes our question portion. So at this point in the agenda, I would turn it back over to the commission for any follow-up questions that they might have for staff or for the applicant.
I do have a couple quick, or not even a quick one, a follow-up for Speedway, and then a follow-up, I'll attach it with staff as well. Based on what we're hearing, why not remove the truck diesel part where the semis would load at, and just turn this into a standard gas station with gas pumps on it? The follow-up for staff is, I know in the comprehensive plan, this is retail, but I believe we talk about supporting retail for the neighborhood areas, when for me it'd be clear that the diesel part for semi-trucks is not really a support of the residential area. So I would ask Speedway, have they talked about, or can we have those pumps removed and turn this into just a set gas station?
At this point, we see the diesel fuel as making this a feasible project. That economic aspect of this area, having availability to trucks to support the expense that we're putting into this project.
It's a good question, Commissioner. The comprehensive plan does have a lot of notes in it. One of those is the one that you read with respect to just general development in and around these types of areas. What controls in this case from a land use perspective, however, is the B4 base zoning. And the reason why we refer to it as a gas station, guys, is because when you look in the definition of gas station in our zoning code, it includes any kind of fueling of motorized vehicles. So that could be diesel, that could be, in today's world, natural gas, could be, petroleum. And so that's why we refer to it as that land use category. That's what's given to us in the zoning code.
Is there
if, and I always love doing this, but it never seems to happen. If this gets approved through council, and they're the ones who will eventually approve it or disapprove it, why can't they look at making the road up there no through truck traffic to eliminate the possibility of a truck coming out of the gas station on Hills Miller and deciding they're going to run to Pennsylvania Avenue or Troy Road?
You're speaking of Hills Miller Road.
Hills Miller, make it no
Pat-
through truck traffic.
Once you're past Speedway.
I
no
know
through truck-
that we can't do that here. But I'm saying, I think maybe the city ought to look at it, because I guess, and what all you have to realize is that if the road from Troy Farms, which eventually someday will happen, gets punched through the Hills Millers Road, this is minor compared to what you're going to see. You're talking about 800 homes that could possibly come down Hills Miller Road to get out, and you can't stop it. Okay? I mean, let's be fair. What you're looking at here is minor compared to what that's going to be. And say that no intersection changes are made, which they're proposing to make here, aren't made, that intersection is going to become worse. Because I've been around Delaware long enough, and I'm not blaming city staff, I'm not blaming city council, but it's the same problem. We ain't got no money. We can't make the street repairs and the road repairs and the intersection repairs we need. Central Avenue. I live right there on Hawk Road. Hang your hat on that one. You want to see them come flying down that road. You think you've got problems. You want to see that one. But there's nothing that can be done. Okay? I mean, at least not unless we as city taxpayers decide to put a one heck of a tax increase on to start going through this stuff to straighten it up. So, but I would like to see at least city council look at putting no through truck, if this passes, no through truck traffic, which means that if you have a truck coming in and stopping at your house because you're moving or delivering furniture, they can do it. But at least you couldn't have the truck come out of Speedway and decide they're going to go up and cut across to Troy Road and go either north or south, just because there seems to be a little hang up the traffic light at that time, which they probably caused anyways. So that's just a comment I wanted to bring out.
Matt, I don't know if you want to address that. I would just note, I mean, we had one individual this evening that made testimony that he uses Hills Miller for his business for running trucks up and down that particular road.
Well, the road goes out of the city and it's out of our jurisdiction, and the township cannot regulate unless there's a reason to restrict the weight limit on the road. They can't regulate it like we can in the city. So it's, there's.
And once again, and I know I'm going to catch crap over this thing. I heard that before, because when over there at, over there by, well, my memory's getting all terrible, people. Don't get to be my age. But the road that cuts through from Liberty Road to the Walmart, through that little subdivision there.
Whole Drive.
We put a three-way stop sign there. I was on council at that time, and they said, you can't do it because it doesn't meet code, and that the state will take away your money. And I said, let them take it away. It needs to be done for safety. Guess what? We got the stop sign. The state didn't take our money away. So I think sometimes we have to look at it and say, what is important for the safety of that road? It's not really set up to handle truck traffic anyway. It's a township county road.
Commissioner, to your question, we certainly can bring that to the attention of council, and you have Councilwoman Keller here who's nodding her head yes as well, to bring that question forward.
Would the clerk make a note of that just to help remind me?
I do have a note.
Thank you.
If this thing does pass, I would also like to add a 2-hour maximum parking on the lot as one of the conditions, if it does pass. Okay? Not only are they agreeing to no overnight, but they're agreeing to anything over 2 hours. You know,
So, Mr. Halter, would you like to make that in the form of a motion to amend the staff
yes, I would.
condition?
I'd like to amend the,
Commissioner, just before you start, I just would ask the question about whether or not that would not include employees who are probably on a 6 or an 8 hour.
I said truck,
Shift.
I should say semi or truck parking. Okay. I don't want to preclude or campers. Okay, I guess. Anything but personal automobiles, would that be safe? Or should I say personal automobile pickup trucks? I don't know which one would clarify that. Now, I'm confused.
Commercial truck traffic? Commercial truck traffic?
Well, yeah, but you got motorhomes too. Some of them are almost as big as a camper.
Commercial truck and motorhome traffic?
Okay, I can go with commercial and motorhome or motorhome camper traffic would not be allowed over 2 hours. That would give them time to get gas, go inside, get something to eat, maybe even swallow a little bit of it before they hit the road.
Can we finish up with the follow-ups prior to potentially adding any conditions?
Well, I believe we have a motion on the floor.
Let it die for a second.
Do I have a second? Okay. Mr. Prowl?
Following back up with Speedway, what are your intended hours of operation? Is this to be a 24-hour store?
Yes, it is.
Can we limit the potential for back to those semi-auto or the semi-truck bays on when they can fuel? So you don't have midnight, 2 o'clock traffic, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock?
That would probably be very difficult to control trucks still coming into our facility.
But they would just bypass. And word would get out, I'm sure.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Potentially, I can't necessarily, I guess I would have to take that back to people above me to see if they could live with something, if that meets their financial obligations for the operations of the store. But it's something I could definitely take back and ask.
None of the other gas stations in that area operate 24 hours. Is that correct? The Sunoco, are there any other 24 hours?
Yeah, there's.
Ladies, we'll limit comment to members of this commission at this point.
There's no particular zoning restriction on the hours of operation for the site or in that general area. If we're talking about a zone change or a conference plan amendment or a conditional use permit, then that would be available for discussion. However, for regulation, it's certainly available for discussion here, and hopefully it sounds like Speedway is going to take that under consideration, which I would hope they would.
Question actually, I have one for staff and one for Speedway. For Speedway, how many staff, what is your staff minimums in the evening? How many staff will be in the convenience store?
Generally around 5.
So, and that's throughout the night hours as well?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And then the question it's a statement question for staff. I know that there had been previous discussion about possibly taking the funds from the sidewalk and then utilizing those for the future sidewalk plan. I would suggest, and I know a concerned citizen mentioned this today, but I would agree that a sidewalk along Hills Miller makes a lot of sense, especially with the adolescents who, once their teenage years can walk to the convenience store, can walk, even further north to the other sites.
Yeah, perhaps I wasn't clear in my remarks, but Hills Miller Road was not where we were speaking of not having the sidewalk, taking a payment in lieu of. We were in the staff report documents, we're containing those remarks to the sidewalk along US 23.
Okay.
I would agree. Having sidewalk connections on Hills Miller and at some point in time to the greater neighborhood makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so given the lateness of the hour, I would ask what the commission's wish is on how to proceed at this point, if we should continue this until our next regular meeting, or if the commission is ready to make a decision.
I mean, we've been presented
I
with a
think
lot of
in
information
lieu of
tonight.
the question that you asked, and the one you answered, you have to go back and talk to those people. It's the only way you're gonna get an answer to your question. Well, I'm gonna kind of leave it, you're the one that threw the question out there.
It's one of those, it is a preliminary plan. I think you can, if Mr. Halter wants to add one of those conditions, but, he could add that condition that he was talking about, but then bring it to a vote based on the preliminary part of what we're seeing here, irregardless of any type of potential later on down the road.
The only difficulty with that is that if we pass this, even with my condition, when they come back for the final, and excuse me if I'm wrong, Dave, you're gonna have to correct me, okay? Because sometimes I am wrong. You said that. We can't, the changing of the hours, is that possible to change at the final?
That would be available for this discussion, and Speedway wanted to proffer that as a restriction. Could certainly do that at the final. You could certainly also continue the case and have that added to this preliminary as well. Really up to you.
Right.
You give them time to go back and seek the answer to the question.
And if we didn't like the answer to the question, could we make more changes?
You can make more changes. I think that you do have to be a little bit careful in that the base zoning controls here and it's a development plan review process. Again, if it was a zone change or a conditional use permit or even comprehensive plan amendment, there would be much more latitude to restrict hours of operation potentially. But I think it's a very legitimate question based on what we've heard here tonight. I think there's some willingness on Speedway's part, at least the representatives here this evening, to go back and take a look at that and see if they could proffer it. So I think both of those options are on the table for you this evening, either to continue the case to have them come back for an answer to that particular question or any others, or you could certainly condition this case this evening if you so chose, or not. So all those options are on the table for you at this point.
I remind the commission that it will be coming back for a final development plan, so.
That's correct.
Well, I would like to make a motion anyways, that no commercial trucks, I'd like to make to the conditions, a motion that we add no commercial truck trailers, campers, or mobile homes will be allowed on the property for more than 2 hours.
The motion.
We got the one that can't stay overnight. Okay. So I would like to at least start with that one.
So I have a motion by Mr. Halter
I'll second that.
and a second by Vice Chair Simpson. Is there any further discussion?
I guess I'm a little concerned why the 2-hour window and why it's not only an hour. My concern that I've heard from the citizens is they do not want trucks stopping there overnight, resting, and I'm not sure that a 2-hour window is needed.
I don't know why. I said 2 instead of 1, to be honest with you. Okay. I wanted to make sure that there was no, I know there's no overnight parking, but how about all day parking? Okay, we didn't specifically limit it.
Okay, so Mr. Halter, do you want to amend your motion?
Do you think 1 hour is, I don't know how long it takes a fuel truck. I really don't know. I'm a fuel truck going to get a sandwich. I mean, I can't give you, is 1 hour seem reasonable?
I mean, are there shower facilities in this?
They're not.
No. Okay,
They're not.
so they're not
It's
going to be doing
approximately
that.
20 minutes to fuel a vehicle.
Yeah.
There will be washing stations as far as cleaning
I
their
think
truck. when
Change my motion to read 1 hour. And thank you.
Then I will second that.
Okay, so we have another motion, an amended motion by Mr. Halter to amend it to 1 hour, and a second by Vice Chair Simpson. And would the clerk please read the roll?
Can I reread the motion to make sure I
Sure.
have it correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I have the motion to amend the conditions that no commercial truck, trailers, campers, or motorhome traffic will be allowed on the property over 1 hour. Is that about correct?
That is correct. Dave,
Does that sound?
I'm going to ask you, is that?
Sounds like what you said.
That sounds like what I said.
Ready for the roll?
Okay, I'm going to add just a comment. My concern by adding that condition is that if we tell people that they can not stay longer than 1 hour, then that also means that they can stay 1 hour. And what I heard Speedway saying was they want people to fuel and move on. And so my concern is by putting that condition on there, that will give the green light to someone to park their truck there for 1 hour. So
Well, that's where I was thinking around the whole conversation around traffic flow and the fact that really the intent is they might pull up from the refueling bay, stop running, and get simplified as much as it's no parking. Now there's that, and I don't know, and I mean, Speedway might be the experts in how you kind of communicate that to the trucker, but parking to me is, I mean, you're parking, you're sitting there for a while. I mean, I think we've all been at Kroger or whatever, and you put your flashers on and do something you probably aren't really technically supposed to do. That's not on the record. But, so that's where I just wonder, like, if even the overnight part of it, I mean, it's truly, there's no long-term parking, and I think to your point, by getting that specific, then you're inviting somebody to go, oh, good, I've still got 40 minutes, even though I've
right. And he's
parked. So I don't.
said that it's going to snarl up the traffic flow if a truck is not moving along.
Right.
So, but anyway, I'm going to call the question and ask the clerk to take the roll on that motion. Unless you want to add something.
So what is the motion?
The
going to be?
amended motion, excuse me, I'm sorry.
It's 10:30 here.
The amended motion for the 1 hour parking limitation would be what we would be voting on, correct?
Do you want to make a comment on that, sir?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I was worried you were getting down to like 25 minutes or something.
Okay.
Not yet.
Will the clerk
Yeah,
take the
no.
roll, please?
It's getting pretty tight.
Mr. Manzouras?
No.
Mr. Prawl?
Yes.
Ms. Tuckerbuck?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Lemke?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Chairwoman Keller?
No. Okay, the motion carries. And then how does the commission want to handle the rest of the case? We need to make a decision if we're going to continue the case or if we're just going to vote. I'd say any further discussion at this late hour would probably be unproductive.
I don't know if I make a motion, but I would suggest that we continue it until we have responses on the question from Mr. Prawl.
Okay, how does anybody else feel?
I'll second that motion to continue.
Okay, so we had a motion from Ms. Tuckerbuck to continue this until until when? Our next regular meeting, or are we, next regular meeting? Okay. And a second by
Yes.
Mr. Manzouras?
Yes.
Okay, roll call?
Mr. Manzouras?
Yes.
Mr. Prawl?
No.
Ms. Tuckerbuck?
Yes.
Mr. Halter?
Yes.
Mr. Lemke?
No.
Vice Chairman Simpson?
Yes.
Chairwoman Keller?
No. So what was the count on that?
3 noes.
Okay.
3 yeses.
So the yeses carry, so we will continue this to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is October 7th. And we will move on to item 4, the planning director's report.
Given the lateness of the hour, I have no report this evening.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to
We
answer
will move
questions.
on to item 5, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, we're still conducting a meeting here, so if you'd like to exit, please do so quietly because we still have other items on our agenda. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Item number 5 is Planning Commission member comments and discussion. We will start with Mr. Prawl.
I have none.
Okay, Mr. Manzouras?
Nothing this evening.
Okay, Vice Chair Simpson.
I have nothing.
Okay, Ms. Tuckerbuck.
I have nothing.
Mr. Lemke.
I'm not going to break the street.
Hey, Mr. Halter.
I'm passed.
And I have nothing because it's 10:30 at night. Our next meeting is October 7th of 2015, and we are officially adjourned. Everyone drive safely. Thank you for coming.